But I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
I don't know if it was a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
So you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
Doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
All right, good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. I'm here with your co-host for the evening, Axel Steele. And hello
everybody.
To all of you who may have troubled minds. What's up, Axel? How are you, my friend?
I am good considering the circumstances and ready to talk about some conspiracy stuff.
All right, conspiracies. Here we go. This is the show where we talk about all those things you're not allowed to talk about. You know what they are. Aliens, conspiracies, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. This show's live. We are streaming live on Facebook, DLive, YouTube, and Periscope. We are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM, and as always, we're taking your phone calls. Jack wants to know right off the bat, are we going to be put on a list for watching this episode? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I make no guarantees as to how that shakes out. But yes, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm just laughing because, well, it's funny. But we are live taking your phone calls tonight. If you want to be part of the show, it's 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. You can find the Discord link as well at troubledminds.org. And please join the Fringe Discord as well. It's the same program, just a different chat room at fringe.fm/chat, and get in here. Lots of smart people having lots of good conversations, and that's what we do. We had a hell of a conversation last night after the show. Matter of fact, some new folks jumped in, and we were chopping it up about all kinds of things, all kinds of crazy things. Were we not? You were a witness to that, I'm pretty sure, Axel.
Yes, I was. It was a good time.
You were. Good times for sure. All right. So as we get going today, the thing is here. We've talked about in the past, probably, a week ago, 10 days ago, something like that. We were talking about the, not the FBI, but the CIA, all right? We were discussing the CIA and some of the dirty tactics they kind of done, and it's just, it's a completely separate show. But today, we are going after a particular other alphabet agency, as they're known, and that is the FBI. Now, the FBI in particular is, if you ask some people, they would say it's the pinnacle of justice in the United States, right? It's competence, and it's steady-handed justice. Well, I'm not so sure that's the case. How would you do you think that's accurate to start out, Axel, before we get going here?
Well, I mean, I'd call it a domestic intelligence organization, is what I would call the FBI personally, but they do also do some law enforcement too.
Right. Well, exactly. So kind of like I always say with this show, everything seems to be a PR front. And so I guess what we're suggesting just right off the bat here is, well, maybe the FBI is a domestic intelligence agency under the cover of, well, a justice thing. But, well, it is what it is, isn't it? So anyway, that's what we're talking about tonight. And so not only that, there's a whole lot that goes into this, because it's not just, right, everybody kind of has this weird feeling that we're being watched and all this other stuff, right? And I don't mean by, like a guy in a trench coat peeking around corners and following you around and things like that. I don't mean anything like that. What I mean is, well, of course, all the digital surveillance that's happening, right, domestically. And that's, of course, why we'd feel like we're being watched. And, our telephones and everything, they're kind of jacked into everything. Are they reading our emails and all the rest of this? Which is not really the scope tonight. There's some other things that they're up to. Some really dirty things that the FBI has been into in the recent past. Let's say since 9/11. Do you think it's been going on prior to that, Axel, or do you think that's probably when all of this sort of started to change?
The FBI. Famously under Edgar Hoover for decades, it basically in large part existed to harass civil rights people and union organizers and other, I'd say largely at the time, what we would call left-wing groups now. I do think that and then in the 90s, they got very much into policing sort of, I guess, what we would call right-wing militia movements. And, they continue to do that in many ways to this day. I don't know when they started spying on our computers, probably as soon as they had the technical expertise to do it.
And, well, of course, and then that whole FISA court debacle and all that other stuff. Like, there's a whole bunch of, I think that's part of what's going on today, too, with the mass surveillance, is that they're trying to find ways around, the Fourth Amendment stuff and, reasonable search and seizure laws, things like this. But meaning that are we, so do you think, Axel, according to the Bill of Rights, are we secure in our papers, as they wrote? And do our papers mean our emails?
Well, as it is today, the Fourth Amendment really just means that if the government breaks it, they won't be able to use that against you in court. But they certainly, break it all the time, and they just don't ever bring the information into a courtroom. And so how would you even ever know if it happens?
That's a hell of a point. And of course, So the PR front of the intelligence collection domestic division, and that's what we're talking about, sort of. But okay, so things have changed more recently. Kind of like I said, if you look at some of the post 9/11 stuff. It seems like the FBI has not just been in the business of doing things like we're describing some sort of mass surveillance type stuff, keep an eye on, wink, wink, domestic terrorists. It also seems like they've been in the business of what one might call entrapment. All right. Now, what that means is, in particular, what does it mean, Axel? You can probably describe it better than I could anyway.
Entrapment is a defense to a criminal charge where you argue that you only committed the crime because of the police's involvement. So, a classic example that you would be able to get off the hook on, for example, would be something like a police officer tells you to break into someone's house or he's going to shoot you. Well, and then arrest you for the break-in. Well, you could argue entrapment in that case and get off. But in practice, unless the case is basically that extreme, it is very difficult to prove in court. And it's a dangerous defense to use because you have to admit that you committed the crime. And so if you don't succeed on the entrapment defense, you're almost certainly going to be found guilty.
Which is not good. Definitely not good. It's like you're going up against the powerhouse beast of the establishment and trying to use I guess we can call it a flimsy defense when they're not going to recognize it. I would call that flimsy, unfortunately. But okay, so then, this recent case is kind of what got me thinking in terms of this. We were talking about this during the CIA episode, and at any point, if I'm off the rails, Axel, feel free to just jump in and correct me here. But okay, so I got this from a website called trendingpolitics.com, and I even ripped the headline to use as the show here, so everybody knew what we were talking about. But the headline here is FBI entrapment accusations escalate as more disturbing Whitmer plot tales surface. Or plot details, I'm sorry. And so everybody has probably heard of this. Last summer, there was this, just before the election, there was this plot, right? This domestic terrorist plot to kidnap poor old Gretchen Whitmer, right? Well, who was the governor of the state of Michigan, and well, of course, one of the states that actually was going through a lot of she was probably one of the first and probably more, let's say, draconian that wanted to lock things down very quickly, right? Very quickly and very sternly, and she wanted to beat that COVID, right? She wanted to beat the hell out of it. So she was locking the hell out of it down. So if you want to correct me anywhere there, Axel, I think that's probably decently accurate.
Yeah, that all sounds pretty accurate to me.
All right, just making sure. All right, so she was on top of that game, and the people in her state were pissed off. They were she got a lot of bad press, of course, and the media. And so when we talk about this tonight, guys, I want you to remember a lot of this is politically charged. There is a lot of this, well, the right wingers did it. No, the left wingers did it. No, this type of mudslinging. We're not talking about that at all. This has very little to do with any kind of partisan anything. And this has everything to do with the FBI setting up you and me possibly as domestic terrorists, right? If it seems like even if in the slightest that they determine that you may be, what would you call it? Easily radicalized. I guess maybe that is a good term. Maybe that's a textbook term. I don't know. But it seems like if they're doing that, then they determine you to be in that category. Then it seems like they go to work, right? Maybe they're not working until that point, and back to the domestic surveillance, right? And now that they've surveilled you and know that, wow, maybe this guy Michael Strange is open to radicalization. Let's move in. And then so they try and what would they try and do then? As just an imaginary FBI sting to get Michael Strange. How might that go down, you think, Axel? Let's put on our have a tinfoil fun hats for a minute.
I mean, well, geez, sort of getting into difficult grounds, but I guess normally what happens is that they already have an informant, so they already know someone who knows you either online or in real life that probably already is a criminal, and maybe, for example, they're already someone who's gotten gun charges or something in the past got turned into an informant, and they'll approach you, and you know them, and they'll try and get you talking about how much you hate taxes and the government and what should be done about it. And, try and get you to make incriminating statements, and then maybe be like, I have a gun that isn't traceable. I'll give it to you. Why don't you go shoot up a courthouse? That's what you should do. And then in theory, you say yes, and they arrest you on the spot, and they go, he was going to attack this courthouse. He illegally is possessing this firearm, material. If the informant is claiming to be a member of a terrorist group, they'll charge you with, materially aiding a terrorist organization. That's normally how the approach goes. And they really can be quite insistent that you should, they'll keep talking to you about how much you don't like the government, and, keep being like, I have a plan. Why don't you help me with my plan to get back at them, or, stuff like that. But of course, they're working for the police. And so you'll get arrested and they won't. Basically.
Right. Okay. Very well said. Very, very, very politically deft there. dodging the terms that might get us in trouble. Now, okay, and that's the way this sort of works, right? And in that description, I am under really no trouble at all, other than until they basically bring the trouble and set it in my lap, and then egg me on to do something about it, right? Maybe even with their plan. Like, this is the type of stuff that's kind of horrifying, right? If we're discussing people that may be disgruntled for a number of reasons. They may not even be, anti-government per se. They may be, anti-capitalism, or they may be anti-communism, or, you really never know sort of where these ideologies come from and how they can, stoke them into radicalization. And I think that's part of the weirdness with all of the things, because it doesn't really matter where you're coming from politically at all. It could be just frustration overall with the system itself, which, I mean, clearly, if anybody's paying attention, there's many reasons to be frustrated overall with the system. So does that put us all in the category of possible radicalization, do you think?
Well, I guess I want to go back and say one more thing. One of the so what happens is they go, hey, I have a plan to attack this courthouse. I'm going to bring a gun that won't be traceable. You come and meet me. Now, what will happen is you'll meet them, you'll get arrested, and then you'll want to argue in court, hey, I wouldn't have done any of that stuff if the police didn't tell me, if the guy working for the police didn't tell me to do it. But in order to prove you were entrapped, you have to prove that you wouldn't have done it without the involvement of the authorities. But you also have to prove, well, then they can establish, but you're the kind of person who would do something like this. And then your entrapment defense fails. And that's the whole reason why the informant has had all these previous conversations with you about how much you don't like the government and what would you like to see happen to the government. Because then they'll bring that up in court. They'll be like, you say you wouldn't have attacked this courthouse, but isn't it true 4 months ago when you were talking to our informant, you said that someone should do something about the state government of Nevada? And they'll use that to prove that, yeah, you're the kind of person who maybe would do this kind of thing anyways. And then they put you in jail.
And congratulations, Mike. You are now in jail. All right. So with that said, just as an example, again, nothing like that is happening. It's not. I have no fear of that happening at this moment. It's just kind of an example to discuss what would happen to me in that sort of instance. But do you think, though, Axel, that there's also they're playing people against their ignorance of the law in some of these cases? Or like what's happening here? Meaning that like if I'm suspicious right off and somebody's like, oh, hey, Mike, remember me? I got this gun that I filed the number off of. What do you think I'm going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how. It seems like they start with compromised people in some cases, right? Maybe mentally deficient, maybe depression problems, maybe, actual mental health things. You know what I mean? I think it seems like they kind of are stoking the fires of taking advantage of people. You know what I'm saying? Just throwing out an example.
The joke version of that is the FBI seems to spend a lot of time trying to convince Muslims with an IQ of 70 to suicide bomb the Hamburglar or whatever. But yeah, a lot of times you're dealing with people that aren't very with it, are manipulatable, are impressionable, and it is true that a lot of the times the people that approach those people are their friends, people they know, and people that have some sort of hold over them. Like, and they always, well, not always, but they often tend to be quite young. But, people's friends can talk them into doing things, and they leverage that to, one can't help but suspect that they are not really just looking for people that maybe someday will do something, but they are looking for people that their informants can convince to commit to a plot.
Gotcha. Okay. And so it's basically my point there is that the main premise seems to be that somebody that can be manipulated. And so it's like, and so I guess that would be the definition of, able to be radicalized, or whatever that textbook term is, dangerous, right? Militant, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so we're a little too deep into the weeds here with some of this. So let's get back to Gretchen Whitmer just real quick, because I want to make sure that, like I said, I wanted an example kind of just to put me out there as an example, because, well, I don't want to put you out there as an example. You know what I'm saying? Not you, Axel, or anybody else. But that's why I kind of put it in those terms, because I'm not afraid of being arrested at this point. Well, I haven't done anything wrong. What do I have to be afraid of? All right. So anyway, the FBI is now coming under increasing scrutiny. This is straight from that article. I'll link it in the chat here. Coming under increasing scrutiny for tactics it used during the Whitmer kidnapping plot. The FBI used at least 12 informants in the operation, and 14 members of the purported extremist group it infiltrated have been charged. One of the lead informants himself, Richard Trask, has been arrested for domestic violence, raising further questions about the credibility of the FBI's operation. Here's a quick quote. Entrapment claims allegations that media tainted the possibility of a fair trial and the arrest of a lead FBI agent who's now accused of brutally beating his wife following the swingers' sex party are among the latest developments in the prosecution of 14 men charged with conspiring to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Michigan Live reported on Sunday. And this is just a few days old. The thing, too, is, like I said, this is when this first came out, I didn't talk about it because I had a feeling there was additional information that was going to come out. When you hear something like this where you snap your fingers and you're like, okay, well, we caught him. Here's the bad guys. There's this insidious plot and they're going to kidnap the governor and then they're going to do terrible things to her, right? How likely does that sound? I don't know. Like, I'm not in the business of kidnapping anybody or anything, but it seems to me that kidnapping a governor is probably high on the list of difficulties, in my opinion. So, I don't know. I don't know. Thoughts there, Axel, as we on the article?
I do want to say one thing about the article. It kind of is confusing here at the beginning because it says the guy that was Richard Trask, the guy that was arrested for domestic violence. It says in the first paragraph that he was an informer, and then in the second paragraph that he's an FBI agent. I went and looked it up. He is an FBI special agent, not just a FBI informant.
Okay, so he actually works for the FBI. He's been on their payroll and was key in instigating this Whitmer kidnapping plot.
I don't know how. Honestly, I have no idea how hard to target various state governors are. My guess is they have at least some private security. But I mean, to be honest, if you have 14 informants and 14 people charged and 12 informants, I mean, that is a platoon-sized element. I guess if a platoon-sized group of armed people got together, you probably really. There'd be a substantial number of things you probably could do. I mean, so I guess I would say that I don't want to be like, I don't think if everyone involved in this was being genuine and it wasn't that 50% of them were working for the government, I mean, it does seem like the kind of thing that would be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, agreed. But again, right, so if you peel off half of them as informants, well, then there's kind of less danger, isn't there? So I don't know. I mean, yeah, like I feel you. I'm just saying it doesn't seem like an easy thing to accomplish. It kind of, no matter how many people you gather together, right? I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to encourage anybody to go try. Please do not try this. It's a bad idea to kidnap anybody or anything at any time, and just throwing it out there because that's the way it is.
Yeah, we do not recommend that anyone break any law at any time.
There you go, exactly. Because, of course, your life will become difficult but as a result of breaking that law. But anyway, so point being, we're going to get into this a little bit more as we go. So this individual, Trask, has been a part of this, and now he's being accused of brutally beating his wife, this actual, not informant, an FBI special agent that was part of this Whitmer kidnapping plot. So, of course, I'm not a lawyer, but if you would ask one, I would imagine they would tell you, well, the defense and the prosecution just got a little bit more sticky because of this. Now you have character kind of going into place here instead of just saying, this guy's a shining beacon of the law working for the FBI. Nope, this guy brutally beat his wife after a swingers party. You see what I'm saying? This is problematic, let's say. So we got about a minute before we got to go, but final thoughts on the beginning in the first segment here of this case and where we're headed tonight, Axel?
I mean, you know what? I think that, I mean, I don't know that much granular detail about exactly what went down. I'm looking at a list of the charges right now. But I will say that I know that some of them have already pled guilty and that there's criminal proceedings continuing against some of them.
Okay, so like I said, there are some details here that are worth looking into, but I think the larger picture is the more terrifying thing, that the FBI is actively looking for people to radicalize, give the means to commit heinous crimes, and then arrest them for them. Like I said, if that's not entrapment, I don't know what is. We're here with Axel Steele tonight. I'm Michael Strange. This is Troubled Minds. More talk about the FBI and entrapment after the break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, right, welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we're here tonight with Axel Steele. And we're talking about the FBI. We're talking about entrapment. We're talking about the Whitmer case. And how does this affect you? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this one of those go get 'em, FBI, go get the bad guys? Or is it something far worse than that? By the way, we're streaming on Facebook, DLive, YouTube, and Periscope. We're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM, and we are taking your phone calls tonight. If you want to be part of the show, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. You can also join the Discord and come join us that way. That's how Axel and I are actually doing the show. He's on Discord with me. Welcome back, Axel. Are you there, my friend?
I am here.
Welcome back. All right, so let's just say before we get in, I'm going to just read a little bit more of this article from the Whitmer case. But and again, like I said, we're not lawyers here. We're not trying to, we don't know the details. There are depositions, there are statements, there are all kinds of things, right? That's lawyer stuff. We're not doing that. We're discussing the larger implication here of the entrapment in the FBI. So can you explain, Axel, just in your general feeling, why this could be a bad thing? Just the entrapment, the FBI. This is not normal law enforcement. Am I right? This is dirty, dirty stuff.
One is the concern is that you're using law enforcement resources basically to generate crimes that you then can make arrest on. And ideally, you'd want the police to be solving crimes that are being committed, stopping people that are on their own engaged in criminal conspiracies, not basically concocting a criminal conspiracy and then swooping in, hopefully, before anything bad actually happens. And so I think that even if you do think that these people I think the first part of the entrapment defense is important too. I think some of these people probably are dangerous, but there's the thing of why are we causing crimes to be committed if they wouldn't happen if we weren't involved? And I think that regardless of if a particular person might commit to a conspiracy, the chances of them they obviously were at some point going to try and kidnap a governor, that doesn't make a lot of sense. To me, at least. No,
not at all. What just happened? I think we just got kicked off a Fringe. No? I think we're okay. All right. Anyway, looks like we're fine. All right. So my software just crashed and came back up. All right. So let me know if we're not on Fringe, guys. It looks like we're fine. Okay. But so agreed. So they're basically generating crimes that may not have happened. And that's the concern here. That's the thing that irritates me a lot, right? Just because, and like I said, they're picking on compromised people in some cases, people with low IQs, maybe mental health problems, things like this, and then they're manufacturing a crime to get the bad guy. Where if we had just let the bad guy alone and kept an eye on him, maybe no crime, probably even no crime would have ever happened. At least in the extent that they're trying to do something like, kidnap a governor, things like this, right? I think that's the disturbing part here is that it may not be even worthwhile other than, we have watch lists for a reason, don't we? No-fly lists and things like this. But if we're kind of causing these things to happen, then aren't the FBI criminals themselves? Especially in the case of, let's say a bomb accidentally goes off that maybe the FBI built. And I'm not saying that happened, but I'm saying that,
I do think that, so when you're talking about agents themselves, right? So the police have the authority to do acts that would otherwise be criminal if it's part of some official investigation. But it is worth pointing out that doesn't apply to informants, because informants aren't law enforcement officials. And so, if you have a police informant that's a drug dealer, it's not like his drug dealing all of a sudden becomes legal. That just becomes a criminal that the police know about their crimes and are deciding not to arrest them. And this doesn't seem to be an informant case. This seems to be an actual agents were involved case. But that is one of the problems with police informants in general, is it also creates a class of criminals that the police know about and aren't stopping from committing crimes.
Because they need their information. They're using them as, informants. yeah. So, okay. So again, right, there's a number of ways this is bad. So we're going to get back to this Whitmer thing. I'll read just a little bit more from the article, but we do have a phone call, and we are taking your calls tonight. 702-957-1037. Do you guys know anything about this particular case? Do you have feelings about the FBI setting people up and then giving them tools to commit violent crimes and then arresting them and saying, ha, we got the bad guy? You got feelings about that? I got feelings about that. I don't like it. I think I think it puts them in the crosshairs of being responsible for basically radicalizing people, right? Taking people who might have become radicalized themselves and then making sure they become radicalized. It's a thin line to walk, and I think it's an ugly place where this leads. All right, so let's go to this phone call, and let's see. I'm not sure who this is. What's your first name? Where you're calling from? You're on Trouble Minds with Mike and Axel.
Hey, this is Justin. I'm calling from Texas again.
Justin from Texas. How are you, my friend? What's on your mind tonight?
I'm doing good. Well, first I want to touch on a subject with Governor Whitmer. One, because it touches close to where I used to live, where I grew up in Michigan. And it ties into the FBI radicalizing people, this, that, and the other. I made a statement earlier. It goes about that, unfortunately, the alphabet gang in our country kind of reminds me of pre-World War II. And I'm sure everybody that listens knows what I'm talking about. And I'd like to expand on that, where you think of letting crime in to set up more crime, this, that, and the other. Well, I mean, go back to the early 80s, war on drugs. What did that do? Destroyed the inner cities of America, put a bunch of people in jail, and oh wait, it created a big revenue source for those alphabet people again, because anybody that knows, follow that money comes through and sets up their black funds for those alphabet gangs. I mean, I may be right, I may be wrong, but I'm leaning towards right, just because of the fact I spent a lot of time working with the government, in the government, and I might know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two.
I see. I gotcha. I won't ask you to elaborate. I think there is some actual kind of cases out there that maybe corroborate that. Maybe like the military, the Afghanistan opium and things like this. I'm sure there's things that maybe corroborate that.
Back in 2003, opium epidemic. White people buying it in Pakistan, filtered through the Taliban. Yeah, that's true. 100%. I'll back it up. Not my real name's on Facebook or on the YouTube stream, and they can
we don't need your real name. It's all right. Well, we're not trying to do that. We're not trying to do that here. All right. So what do you think then regarding this? How do we change this? If this is dangerous and they're creating crimes and the government is like a criminal organization, which it shouldn't be. How do we change this? And don't tell me violence, please. Well, don't tell me that.
Honestly, I completely agree with you. I do not want to see the streets run red with violence. But the only way to correct this is to correct mainstream media and hold their feet to the fire and call this BS out. Because if they won't call it out and they feed false narratives to the people, the masses, people that don't actually do their own research, it's going to continue to happen. And I'll give you an example. If you were raised since, I don't know, you were 6 months old, and I kept telling you, the sky's red, the sky's red, the sky's red, and you heard that every day until the day you're 20 years old, I couldn't change your mind that the sky wasn't red, right or wrong.
No, exactly.
And that's the part mainstream media is playing. They keep feeding us a certain narrative, and they never attack what the real issues are. Well, drugs and crimes in the street. Well, where are the drugs coming from? Well, the cartel. There was a certain cartel person that got arrested just recently and disappeared into federal prison in Denver, Colorado. The Escape artist. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
The Mexican cartel guy.
Yep.
You know why they shut down his live broadcast of him on the witness stand?
No.
Because he started to name names of certain people that are on, what do they call that? The killer list. And he named her and a bunch of other people connected to her on how he was able to flood the streets thanks to the stuff she allowed him to do.
Ooh.
It goes back into the setting up of crime to create more revenue, more law enforcement, more lockdowns, more this, that, and the other.
And if they have some of us go down in the process, oh well, right? Can you hear him, Maxwell?
Oh, I can. I was just going to say, it's well known that the DEA and the largest Mexican cartel had a deal for years where they wouldn't target that cartel's drug dealers in exchange for that cartel giving them information about the other ones.
Yes, exactly. It ties into the big fish get to swim and the little fish drown.
Which is
I also would
go ahead.
I also would like to tie this back to the period in Germany before World War II, because, of course, somewhat famously, Hitler himself was a police informant. He joined, it wasn't called the Nazi Party then, it was like the Bavarian something party. But when he joined the party that would become the Nazi Party, he was doing so for the military police, to keep an eye on veterans who were joining that party because they were worried that they might try to make a move for Bavarian independence.
Yes, and also didn't they do false flags? Let's destroy our government and use our own people. The six leaders of Entrapment,
right?
Main people causing a riot there. I mean, kind of ties back and forth, doesn't it? Sorry for the coughing. I smoke.
That's okay. I understand. I completely understand. I think it does. Go ahead, Axel. Go ahead.
This is getting a little off book, but there is a question to what extent the beer hall putsch in 1923 was something that was done on the orders of elements of the German military and intelligence organizations. There's also the question of when did Hitler stop working for the German military police? And the answer to that question is unknown. So I guess what I'll say, listeners can make their own decision about that.
There you go. We got to keep trucking on this, Justin. So anything else on this Whitmer case while we got you on the phone?
So I'll just touch back to the whole, it's BS that our government that is trained, and I will completely say this, our government is trained on taking people that's, borderline yes, no, and creating cult-like reactions. And that's what happened there. They used a bunch of informants, kept pressing the issue. Oh yeah. We need to kidnap this governor. Well, you keep pushing those issues too long, you're going to actually get somebody like, I'll just use, since we're talking about Hitler, you're going to get somebody like Hitler that breaks away from that and then builds his own thing off of that. They're playing with fire and using gasoline. It does not work.
Does not work. I agree 100%. And this is why we're talking about it. I think that there's this myth out there that people kind of maybe, flirt with the idea of, oh yeah, the government is corrupt and they do these terrible things, right? Which we talk about often, but without specifics, it's just theories, right? So I think it's important to kind of get down to the bottom of some of these things once in a while and point out specific examples of, look what the hell just happened and look what the FBI caused. Justin, you were the best.
Can I say one last thing about theories and conspiracies? And I know this is completely off subject.
I was about to say, final thought, my friend. Go right ahead.
Heart weather control conspiracy. Oh, wait, Dubai just sent drones up in the sky and made it rain. I thought that was a conspiracy.
Yeah, well, it's well known. China's actually been doing the same thing. They've been seeding the clouds to create rain. Yeah, it's a thing. Again, like I said, if you the harder you look, the more answers kind of seem to pop up with particular topics. I appreciate the call, my friend. You're the best.
Hey, I thank you for taking me, and I appreciate Axel talking right back and forth on the same subjects. And I hope you all have a wonderful night.
Thanks a lot. You too. You too. There you go.
Thank you, Justin.
That's Justin in Texas. And it says he worked for the government and has some wink, wink, some ideas of some things that may have happened that are not on the up and up, let's say. We're taking your phone calls, by the way. We're talking about FBI entrapment, the Whitmer case, and some other things. We may get into McVeigh and some other stuff, but depends on you. As you guys know, these conversations are kind of sloppy and kind of open-ended, and that's the way we like them because, then we get to include you. So if you want to be part of the show tonight, give us a call at 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. You can join the Discord at troubledminds.org. Just click on the caller queue once you get in there, and we'll put you on the show. It's as simple as that. Anything else you want to add to that, Axel, before we go into a little bit more of this Whitmer stuff?
Oh, no. That was all good stuff. I have been looking at the actual charges. It does seem that 6 people got charged in federal court for really quite serious crimes. And then the other 7 or 8 people were charged in state court, basically for helping that first group of people. And so I'll take back what I said a little bit earlier. It looks like the core of the conspiracy was only 6 people, and that the other people are being charged with, like, providing weapons training to them at a camp or something like that. Gotcha.
So it's kind of like periphery charges that aren't really concerned with the conspiracy itself. Gotcha. So if it's the core of it is 6 people, and we had how many FBI informants? Was it 12 or 14?
Yep.
It seems like they were bullied into it. What in the world? What in the world? All right, going to read just a little bit more of this. This is crazy. All right, so if you guys aren't familiar with how this went down, this is it straight from this article from trendingpolitics.com. It's in the links down below. You can follow it right along with when I'm reading this. Quote, one night in September, 3 vehicles filled with alleged terrorists and undercover FBI informants conducted surveillance on Whitmer's vacation home. A group stopped to inspect a bridge that one FBI informant said he could help them detonate in an effort to slow police response should they abduct Whitmer from her Birch Lake cottage near Grand Traverse Bay. The report continued. Others used night vision goggles to peer in on the politician's home from across the water at a boat launch. The plan, according to the FBI and Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, was to kidnap Whitmer and potentially strand her in the lake or transport her to Wisconsin to be tried for treason in the hopes of sparking a civil war. No offense to Gretchen Whitmer, I'm pretty sure nobody is going to cause a civil war over her. That's just one man's opinion. Yeah. But all right, so they did this surveillance stuff. They set it up. They were talking about blowing up the bridge to stop the police. It seems sketchy, doesn't it? There's a lot of this that's just kind of facepalm, like I said. First, kidnapping a governor is like a terrible idea under any circumstance. But then you start getting, so the core of the conspiracy, like you said, Axel, 6 people. You got 12 or 14 FBI informants. I can't remember how many. At least twice anyway, twice what the actual conspiracy was. And then, holy crap, are we serious right now? Or are we being serious? This seems stupid, does it not?
Yes. Some of the people that they charged actually really does seem pretty flaky. They charged with providing material support to a terrorist, to basically a YouTuber who was part of like the Wolverine militia, that they actually kicked out of the militia because he was like, I don't want to have anything to do with a violent plot. And they still charge that guy.
Right. And that seems to be part of the weirdness too. We've got some cases that we may get to tonight that people have kind of gone to the FBI or whatever, the agents themselves have gone to great lengths to put people in these positions to commit these crimes, even provided them with the tools necessary to do it, egged them on, they were going to meet them there and everything, and the person backed out at the last minute and was like, no, I don't feel right about this, and then they arrested him anyway. Which is,
this is something that's, when you see these cases that involve informants or agents and possible entrapment, I would say if you want to play a game, look into what they're actually being charged with. A lot of the times, like this YouTuber, they're not being charged with conspiracy to commit a crime or attempted crime, and the reason why is because abandonment is a defense on those crimes. If me and you enter into a conspiracy to rob a bank, but I back out and abandon the conspiracy, that's a defense to me being charged with conspiracy. But it's not a defense for material support to terrorism. If you know, if you've already given the guy weapons training, and then they go, we want to blow a bridge up, and you're like, I don't want to do that, they can still charge you for support. They just can't charge you for conspiracy anymore. So I think that it's interesting that that's why when I was looking at the people charged in state court, I was kind of like, none of these people are charged with conspiracy. That means like none of these people probably agreed to do anything. And probably, at least in one case, they backed out because it's clearly was getting dangerous and a bad idea.
Yeah, well, because this stuff is a bad idea. I mean, let's be real. Like, the stuff is a bad idea. And it kind of existentially, it comes down to that question, whether the FBI should be meddling in this stuff at all. And now let me ask you this, Axel, and I have my opinion on this clearly, but do you think they would have gone through with this had the FBI not been there, pushing the idea, formulating the plan, and radicalizing them? Do you think this would have went down?
You know, honestly, I just don't know enough about how central what the agents were doing was to what happened. I do think that at the point in time they made the arrest, like, they did have to arrest these guys because they had gotten pretty far along into doing something that wasn't a good idea. I mean, it really still seems super half-baked. They were, like, gonna kidnap her from her vacation home, and that doesn't seem like it would work, but I could see them at that point were far enough along that it seemed like somebody was going to get shot or something, and so you probably did have to step in then. I don't know how serious these people were before they met the FBI agents or not. I lean your way just because, you know, why don't we have an example of this happening when they're If this was the fourth time a government official's been kidnapped in the last 10 years by militia groups, I'd be like, okay, maybe these people were going to do it again. But how come we don't have any of these cases where there aren't FBI informants all over it?
Exactly. So I'm with you. And no, again, we do have to be careful. I appreciate Axel backing me off the ledge here when I tend to go, but it is, like I said, the bigger question is, should they be doing these things? And, you know, are they creating crimes where crimes really didn't exist before they stepped in and pressed all this stuff? Like you said, we don't know the actual individuals involved. So who knows? Maybe those 6 people were literally off the rails and that's how they got on their radar. But, you know, I think that's really what we come down to with when you talk about dissidents, right? You talk about anti-government people and things like this. I just think that the political definitions are so sloppy and so blowing as the wind change politically that it's a little I guess sloppy is the best way to put it. A terrorist is a terrorist, right? It's somebody that's going to do harm to property or people. I don't know the exact definition, but it seems like it should be an easy enough definition. Not somebody who hates the government that needs to be egged into doing something against the government. That to me is not the definition of a terrorist. I'm sorry, but anyway. So as we finish up, we got about a minute left. Anything you want to cap on before we go to the next top of the hour here?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to go to the next.
Do it. Mike, just do it. It goes fast, doesn't it, Axel? It goes fast.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about this FBI informant type thing going on with the Gretchen Whitmer case. Were they actually going to kidnap her until the FBI stepped in? I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know it looks suspicious as hell. That's what I know. How deep was the FBI involved? Now we have one of the main actual FBI agents being charged with domestic battery and beating his wife brutally and all kinds of stuff. So it's just a mess, right? And so it again, you gotta kind of look at the demeanor of the people involved. And this guy, well, didn't help things, did he? For himself, his wife, or anybody else. And that kind of makes me suspicious. If you guys want to be part of the show tonight, this is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. I'm here with our friend Axel Steele, and we're talking about entrapment in the FBI. 702-957-1037. Give us a call, and we'll put you on the show. For right now, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds in just a moment.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. Somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
All right, welcome back to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are here with your co-host for the evening, Axel Steele. What's up, Axel? You there? Test 1, 2.
Hey, everybody.
What is going on? And this is a show where we talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. You know what they are? Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. We are streaming on Facebook, DLive, YouTube, and Periscope. We are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM, and we're taking your phone calls tonight. Justin led us off with a fantastic call. You're next. If you can hear me, what do you think about FBI entrapment? Do you think that these folks would have actually tried to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer had they not been goaded into it by the FBI? That's the question tonight and more. We're going to get to more of these cases. We'll get to McVeigh in just a little bit. And some of this that may have been going on for quite a while. But if you want to be part of the show, number to call is 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Phone number is there. Discord link is there. Come say hi. Come say hi. Richard says, an inverted world. Yes, an inverted world. Yeah, so all kinds of craziness going on with this stuff, and the FBI entrapment. So welcome, Axel. Do you have any social media you want to share for folks if they want to find you, or do you want to remain...
If you search for Axel Steele on Twitter, you can look for the account that is me. There's only one account that spells it AXLE instead of the other way, so that's me.
There you go. Follow Axel Steele on Twitter. Okay, no website. You're not selling a book, nothing like that.
Nope.
Okay, all right. Just making sure. Because if you were, that's okay. All right, so let's keep talking about this. All right, so as we talked about the Whitmer case, now there's a little bit more I want to read about that particular FBI agent and how he brutally beat his wife, and there's actual language that describes that in particular. But anything you want to kick into this, maybe in a general sense that maybe people may not realize about it, or should we just or maybe recap it? You want to recap it? Whatever. Just give you some time to talk, Axel. I don't want to bogart the whole.
All right. I mean, the Whitmer case. It was these. These people by all accounts, they got far enough to be surveilling her house, and they were talking about how they wanted to do it before the November 3rd election. I've been reading a little bit when we've been on break, a little more into it. Yeah, I'm not sure how committed they really were. It does seem like this guy by the name of Adam Fox, the alleged mastermind of the plot, does seem to be the actual problem maker, in the sense of he does seem like a real lunatic, and he's the one that the criminal complaint spends the most time talking about. So I think that guy probably seemed like bad news. He had actually gotten kicked out of a previous militia group for being too violent. So,
that says
I thought you were coming in there, Mike. Sorry.
No, that says a lot. It says you get kicked out of a militia group for being too violent. I mean, aren't we told that all militia groups are super violent? I mean, in political terms, I mean. Yeah, okay. So one guy was super bad news, and maybe the rest were maybe on the fence. So it makes you wonder, though, doesn't it? Was this really a thing, or was it, again, constructed by the FBI to maybe bring down, I don't know. If the guy's a super bad guy, it seems like you don't have to work too hard to take him down, do you? I think that's the weird part about this. One
would think not. Yeah, but it seems like, he seems like the kind of guy. He's the one that is, at least in the criminal complaint, is talking about how he wants to start a civil war where we need to burn down society in order to rebuild it. The United States is becoming communist. That kind of stuff, which is, you certainly see that kind of language used a lot, although the very fact that it's used a lot might point out that most of the people that are talking like that aren't really that serious about it.
Well, right, exactly. And so, unfortunately, we have, these like I don't know. The good thing is nobody got hurt, right? That's the good thing. Is in other incidents, which we may get to tonight. Hopefully, we don't do too much of this, beating around the bush, because I do know that there are things that you probably shouldn't cross some lines when you talk about these things. Otherwise, you find yourself on that same list, right? Which I'm not trying to do, but. But thankfully, nobody got hurt in this instance. Thankfully that, they stopped it before it went any further. Again, they were surveilling the summer home, the vacation home of Whitmer and all the rest of this. But I don't know. Still questions remain because, of course, we don't have all the details yet. But back when this happened, remember, this was super highly politicized. It made headlines. It was like, oh, we knew it. The right-wingers, they're out to get everybody, Look what they're going to do to poor Whitmer, right? It was that kind of thing in the media. And so I was like cautious because it seemed like, as we know, right, as anybody who's paying attention knows, that it seemed like there might be some law enforcement involvement, right? These kind of plans don't seem like they hatch all the time on their own, right? So I don't know, maybe they do. And I think part of the thing too, just to throw it out there, I think part of the issue with a lot of this is that law enforcement in and of itself, if let's say something like this was happening organically and legitimately, and the FBI caught on to it and they actually stopped it from happening, right? This kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer. In many cases, it would stay kind of under wraps for a long time until this went to trial and things like this. It wouldn't get a ton of press because they didn't want to damage their case. So I think that's part of what, and then of course they wouldn't really get a lot of credit, right? Because it kind of goes under the radar. So it's like I said, not that I'm defending the FBI in general terms, but I'm saying if they stopped something that happened organically and was going to be terrible, they kind of don't get a lot of credit for it. But then when they do stuff like this, well, they've got all of us going, WTF is going on, right?
Oh yeah, I remember the media, at the time being like, this one guy has Trump campaign signs in his yard and was arrested, and it's like, yeah, half the country's going to vote for him. Like, I mean, that's not really a red flag that someone supports one of the two major political parties, but they very much. I think a lot of it was that it was a cudgel you could try and use against Trump. That like, think of all the breathless talk about how we were, 36 hours away from fascism for 4 years by sort of the liberal end of the media.
Yes, definitely. All right, so I don't know, like that's why we're talking about this tonight. We will get into McVeigh. You got a bunch of stuff on McVeigh, right?
I have a book that I don't have access to right now, but I do have stuff to say about Timothy McVeigh.
Okay, cool. So let me read just a little bit more of this article. Again, I'm going to link it in the chat if you guys don't know where this came from. It's right down below in the description boxes of all the social media. I'm trying to get them out there first before we start, but here we go. This is from, again, trendingpolitics.com. And so it gets a little more sketchy now because we have the actual FBI agent. He's not an informant, as Axel pointed out in the previous hour. He's an actual FBI agent, all right? So this happened. Controversially, one of the FBI agents leading the Whitmer plot investigation became violent after taking his wife to a swinger party in Michigan and was subsequently arrested himself. Quote, one of the FBI agents who has been leading the investigation into an alleged plot to kidnap Michigan's governor was arrested Sunday after his wife said he smashed her head on a nightstand and strangled her following an argument about a swingers party they went to, BuzzFeed News reported. A tongue twister. But, okay, and here's a picture of the guy, right? His name, again, is, what's his name? Hold on. I got it. It's in here somewhere. All right. His name is, let's see. Anyway, I'll get it in a sec. Here's a picture of the guy. The arrest of an FBI agent credited with helping thwart to plot a kidnap and kill Governor Gretchen Whitmer complicates one of the most closely watched cases of violent extremism in the country. You like the political language? One of the most violent extremism in the country. All right. Special Agent Richard J. Trask, that's his name, was charged with one count of assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder or by strangulation in connection with the alleged assault, the report continued. All right. Like I said, it doesn't seem like this is a nice fellow. Am I right? I mean, am I right? Comments on that, Axel?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to say anything nice about domestic abusers. I think that
well, I wasn't expecting you to. But about this guy and how this complicates this case.
I mean, it does, but they just won't have him testify. It's not like it's going to be I don't think. I mean, you probably don't want to call him to testify because you don't want the defense attorney to beat up on him about his criminal rap sheet. But I don't think it's going to really help any of these people. They for the most part look like they're in for some pretty serious trouble, if you ask me.
Yeah, okay, so, but I'm going to guess because, of course, I think, I have a hunch here that this was a politically motivated thing. With the timing, how it came out, right, how they were able to use it in the media, how details leaked, right? Of course, some investigations, they're very tight-lipped and they don't let the media get anything, right? And other investigations, they're like, oh, yeah, and they're passing out, little sheets that they've written up that the media can report on, And I think this was one of those ones just before the election, just like you said. They're trying to, or no, not like you said, like I described, they're trying to drum up some political drama just before the election, right? So who knows? Maybe the timing was suspect with the election coming up. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. Like, I think that's part of this is once you have like all these, the media kind of salivating to kind of crap on one party or the other, things like this sort of tend to clunk out just before election time. So I think the thing that, again, that made me suspicious when it first happened clearly was the timing. When things like this start happening just before an election, well, odds are maybe it's not a coincidence, if you follow my train of thinking here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is funny how these sort of things tend to break at politically opportune times. I mean, obviously you have room to decide when you're going to come in and arrest these people. I mean, they started plotting in April. You probably basically could have arrested them any time from April to October. The truth is they probably were trying to rope more people into it. I mean, you want to just bust the first two people talking about it, or do you want to wait later to when you can make a bigger arrest and, have it be scarier because the conspiracy has grown to being, 12 people or 14 people or whatever.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, like I said, that just the timing to me is suspect, and that's why I didn't touch it when it came out, because I had a feeling there was some propaganda going on with that. Yeah, what's up, people making comments about this guy having a roid rage in the from this FBI agent. Remember, he's an FBI agent. He's not an informant. He's not a criminal. This is an FBI agent that brutally beat his wife, and the details are horrific. So yeah, all right. Okay, so just to point it out, the conversation tonight is not just this case in particular. We can move on from this if you prefer, Axel. There's a lot more stuff we can talk about. But, well, I mean, it's not okay, right? I think this is not okay. The debate lies in whether the FBI or law enforcement in general should be able to basically put together a terror plot, egg people into doing it, and then arrest them for doing it and giving them the tools to do it with. It seems excessive in my book, and like I said, it seems like they're picking on people in a lot of cases. Mental health people, again, people with low IQs, people, who knows, right? Like, that's the worst part of it. Do you really think they're going to catch like some criminal mastermind by setting them up like this? You think that'll ever happen?
I mean, yeah, most people have the sense that when someone is talking to you about how you should be committing crimes, that you shouldn't listen to them. I mean, for the record, listeners, if anyone online starts talking to you about trying to get you to talk about crimes you want to commit or trying to convince you to commit crimes, you need to stop talking with that person immediately because they are probably a fed.
There you go. The spooks are here. Yeah, don't do that. Don't get egged into committing crimes because somebody tells you to. That's a bad play all the way around. All right, so there's more. There's tons of articles about this in particular because again, as they have to politicize the hell out of it when this thing breaks back before election time, they also, of course, have to when there's something like this happens where it seems obvious that the FBI was deeply involved in this plot and maybe even more so than they should have been. Well, now the snapback of the other political side comes into play, and so this is hitting the news cycles like crazy right now. And of course, they're trying to politicize it from the other side. So I don't know. Like I said, it's impossible to know exactly what would have happened without the FBI intervening in this and kind of stoking the fires of extremism, as it may be called. But I don't know. Like where this would have headed, I'm going to guess, like I said, that it's probably not. This would not have led in a kidnapping of anybody. But what the hell do I know?
We were talking about entrapment earlier. I guess I do sort of want to point out that entrapment's not. It's not a defense that's set out in a statute. It came about through court decisions. And originally, courts were really hostile to it. They basically, in the United States, they basically took the approach of, you know what, we don't care if it was the government that got you to commit this crime. You're the one who still committed it. So too bad. But basically, and it did turn out to basically be federal authorities, basically got so blatant about entrapping people that courts eventually stepped in and were like, no, you can't do that anymore. Federally, the first entrapment case had to do with a guy on the West Coast who the immigration authorities kept approaching and trying to give him money to import Chinese prostitutes illegally, and he kept saying, no, I don't do this, I don't break the law. And then eventually, after like months of pestering, he gave in and said he would do it, and they arrested him. And the Ninth Circuit was like, what's going on here, guys? But that being said, having looked at that case, I'm pretty sure that entrapment defense wouldn't hold up in the modern courts. They've actually restricted it. It made it hard to succeed in entrapment defense than what it was originally. I think these days that guy would still be good to be getting for immigration violations.
They get him anyway, is what you're saying here.
Well, I think they'd be like, you're the kind of person who would do this.
Right, exactly. Like it becomes a character thing at that point. They're like, yeah, he was probably going to do it anyway. Even though he refused to do it with help, it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, okay. So I got this, there's a website here I pulled up, speaking of entrapment. Going to read just a little bit about this because I'm not a lawyer and I don't know these things in particular detail like this. But this website is called FBIExpert.com, and it looks like they do some entrapment defense stuff. So at least you would hope they know what's going on. Read just a little bit about this. Entrapment. While the courts have generally held the Justice Department can use trickery and or deception orchestrating FBI undercover operations, these investigations are typically fraught with serious problems. Because FBI undercover operations involve complicated scenarios requiring advanced planning and special funding, the Justice Department mandates these investigations undergo a rigorous review process. And because undercover operations invariably involve the use of a confidential informant, cooperating witness, and or government agent acting in an undercover capacity, entrapment, and other legal defenses, including outrageous government conduct, are valid defenses lawyers will argue in an effort to defend a client. So, like I said, I don't have any experience doing this, and I don't even know if those guys are actually experts, but it sounded good to me, and I thought maybe we'd read it. Any comment there?
I think it does seem to be repeating the FBI's line. I'm not sure how confident I am that the FBI rigorously vets these operations, to be honest with you. I think the FBI plays very fast and loose with its informants, but entrapment's a defense that does get brought up a lot. It just doesn't succeed very much.
Gotcha. Okay. So
normally, if you're arguing entrapment, you're in real trouble. Is what I would say.
Busted. But wait, gotcha. Dead to rights. All right. So again, we're going to move off the Whitmer thing here again, and we are taking your phone calls. If you guys have comments on this, what do you think? Again, like I said, is this politically motivated? And I think probably another disturbing question is: are these crimes maybe created for maybe changing people's minds politically to try and get the stuff into a news cycle before an election? Sort of like I was describing the suspect timing of how this went down. That's a little more partisan law enforcement, working hand in hand with the mainstream media type stuff. That's a little more disturbing and a different thing entirely. Axel?
I don't think. I would say that maybe someone was like, let's get this done now. But I will say, I don't think the FBI started a 6-month operation to try and embarrass the president or something like that. I know that the president and the FBI President Trump, weren't like on necessarily great terms, but saying that, okay, I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI did that. I kind of don't think that's what they were doing in this case. It does sort of seem like these people, the original conspirators, were being a little too blatant about what they wanted to do on Facebook, and probably legitimately someone pointed the FBI at them and was like, hey, these guys are talking about how they want to attack government officials because of the COVID lockdown.
Right, of course. So there's, again, there are some political implications here. But that's okay. Like I said, we don't have to go down that road. It is, making claims against the FBI that we probably need evidence for, right? But like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if some of that evidence did kind of come out as part of this case and somebody jumped all over that. So we'll see. And again, it's kind of still in the early stages here. I don't think anybody has quite gone to jail yet. But it is back in the news because, well, the guy beat his wife, and it's horrible. But okay, so
it does seem like a couple people have already pled guilty to conspiracy charges. Like at least one guy in the core group seems to have already pled out. I don't know if that means he's in prison right now, but probably does though.
Gotcha. Okay. So maybe it is winding down, but okay. So do you have any cases on the top of your head that you can think of? We got a couple minutes. It's about 3 minutes left before we go to the break that maybe are similar in the past, let's say 20 years, maybe since 9/11 or even before that. Is there anything you can think of that seems maybe suspect that the FBI went a little too far in doing this type of thing?
I can't remember the guy's name now, but just a couple months ago, there was an arrest of a Muslim kid, like a young guy who was an Uber driver, and that case was really pretty brutal. He was like a gig worker, and someone from an unknown agency, they didn't say who, got in contact with him, pretended to be a young woman who was also Muslim and interested into him and wanted to date him, wanted to marry him. And eventually that agent, I guess, got cold feet because she told him, like, you better be careful about what you're saying. She was also trying to egg him on about how evil the United States was. And so she disappeared. And then this one was an FBI informant. Another person showed up pretending to be a woman that was interested in him and wanted to date him and wanted to marry him and kept trying to get him to talk about how much he hated the government. And so in that case ended because he's like, okay, we should get married. And of course she had to ghost because she wasn't exactly real. But the thing was that he kept saying, like, no, I don't want to do violence. No, well, it would hurt innocent people. I don't want to do it. It wouldn't happen. And so they ended up picking him up on just some like bogus gun charge because he had taken a photo with himself with a gun on Facebook 3 years ago, and they ended up bundling him up on a weapons charge. Because they couldn't prove anything. They couldn't get him to agree to commit a terrorist act.
Right, exactly. So they got him anyway. I think that's part of the tragedy here of talking about these things is would these crimes happen without the FBI kind of baiting people, sticking them into situations and then asking them to do violence? It's hard to say. Looking to hear from you guys still talking about this tonight. 702-957-1037. I'm Michael Strange. We're here with Axel Steele tonight. This is Troubled Minds. Don't go anywhere. More after the break. All right, welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're here tonight with your co-host for the evening, Axel Steele, and we're talking about the FBI and entrapment and some of these strange cases where it seems like, well, it's open for debate whether the FBI went too far or not. That's really what's on my mind tonight, and hoping you guys can be part of this. If you want to be part of the show tonight, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. You can also join the Discord at troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link, get your ass in here, and let's talk about all kinds of great stuff. I see you there. Digital footprint. I see you showing up in the Discord. Thanks for hanging out with us. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple more of these cases and continue talking about this stuff. So let's do that, and let's get back to Axel here. What's up,
hey, everybody?
Steele? What's up, buddy? How you feeling, man?
I'm I'm still around.
Still around. All right. No rage quitting yet. All right. I like that. Okay. So there are other cases. I pulled up a bunch of cases. There seems similar in that we have, again, maybe the war on terror, things like this, and the FBI kind of possibly, right? I don't know. Like, again, it's impossible to tell without loitering this type of stuff, kind of going deep into details of these cases. But just kind of at first glance, it seems that maybe the FBI does have a habit of maybe overstepping the things they should or should not be into, right? So we got a couple more we'll talk about, but anything to add to that, to my layman stupid rambling there? Axel?
Oh, I would just say that the name of the guy I was talking about before the break is Khalil Abu Rayyan. If you want to look that up, I guess it was a couple. It actually was a couple years ago. It got reported, not just a couple months ago. It made its round on Twitter a couple months ago, so that's probably why I was remembering it as being more recent.
Gotcha. Okay, so I have it here, and I'm going to drop this link in, and you guys can check that out. This is exactly the guy that Axel was talking about, and I'll drop it in the chat as always, and you guys can take a look and make up your own mind. All right, so this is not a one of those cases that's it's not unique, right? This is not a unique thing. This sort of thing happens all the time, right? With the actual FBI kind of trying to contact people, wink, wink, what's up, baby? You're super sexy. I want to be your husband. I want to be your wife. And then, things like this. And then they end up trying to make them commit terrible atrocities. This is not out of the ordinary, is it?
No, I mean, you know what? It obviously is bad. I don't know. I don't have a good reason why it happens. I don't know why we're harassing depressed pizza delivery drivers. Basically, that doesn't seem like a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. And so this one in particular, so the one you brought up here, Khalil Abu Rayyan, Rayyan, just a quick overview. He is an American citizen who expressed support for ISIS and a desire to carry out a domestic terror attack in a church in Detroit. He was investigated by the FBI after making increasingly violent terror threats on Twitter, they say. Rayyan was arrested on an unrelated charge of illegal firearm possession and was sentenced to 5 years in prison on April 6, 2017. Rayyan was given a sentence greater than that recommended by federal guidelines for the charge due to his professed intentions to carry out a domestic terror attack. He was released from prison on June 5th, 2020. So
that would be why it was in the news. That makes sense.
So they just released him, and yeah, that's why. So here's another one, right? So I don't know. Again, did he commit these crimes? No.
He didn't. He didn't. They didn't even charge him with conspiracy to commit terrorism. They ended up charging him with an unrelated weapons charge because they couldn't get him to admit he wanted to commit a crime.
Right. See, and so at some point, like if they're resistant to you and you're literally giving them support, resources, you're giving them ideas. I mean, isn't there a point where you should just be like, okay, this guy's probably cool, just walk away, right?
I mean, I think the problem just is you've already invested so much time talking to the person and developing him as a potential criminal that you don't want to walk away. Where are you going to find the next depressed pizza guy?
Well, apparently they're all over the block. Everybody likes pizza, and the pizzas are delivered probably at a crazy rate in this country. But I mean, that's part of the problem, right? It's like I said, people that are depressed or compromised in some other way. It just doesn't seem fair. It's just like the weight of like a government institution coming after you to convince you to do terrible things. It just. Kind of icky. So with that, again, there's some other stuff here. So this is from Gothamist.com, and this is actually, let's not do that one. All right. So anyway, anything you want to talk about regarding any of the rest of these cases you can think of? So that one came off the top of your mind. I've got some others we can discuss too. But is there, let's say McVeigh? What do you know about the Timothy McVeigh case? Was that? I mean, did they meddle enough that he maybe wasn't as part of that as they I mean, it blew up and people died and all that stuff is terrible. But what role did the FBI play? Is what I'm saying here.
Well, in the McVeigh case. Okay, so my stuff on the McVeigh case comes from this book called Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, The Secret Lives of Timothy McVeigh. It was published in 2016 by Wendy S. Painting. And this is a bit of a different case. The thing about McVeigh, and this might get us into a little trouble, but this is just directly from the book. It's not my own accusations. The thing about McVeigh that's weird and isn't really widely reported on, although people knew it at the time, is that he people don't know, the McVeigh story is he was a Gulf War I vet. He, after the war, he tried to join the Special Forces Command. It had always been his goal in the military. He got bounced out of that really quickly, just in a week or so. Although put a little period about that. And he came back to civilian life, worked as a security guard in New York for a while, where his family was from, and then upstate New York somewhere, and then started running around, traveling the country, selling copies of the Turner Diaries, joining these militia groups, and eventually, having someone else assemble a bomb for him. The claim was never he was the one that assembled the bomb, although no one was ever arrested for that. And detonating it at the Oklahoma City bombing. But the thing is that, which doesn't get reported on, is that McVeigh had maintained to his sister and his mother, ever since he had left the military, that he was still working for military intelligence, and that the reason why he was traveling the country and joining all these groups was on their orders. And it's actually what he also told his first set of defense attorneys, who they were public defenders, who promptly panicked and demanded to be let off the case. It eventually got sent over to some big media guy that wanted to take on a big famous case. And so this book points forward that McVeigh might be more of an example of the FBI more or less directly doing some crimes. The FBI, sorry, the government. The government.
Meaning that so we don't know who built that bomb, but it seems to be that maybe they provided him with the means and the know-how and maybe built it for him, right? We don't know the exacts of that. But apparently the guy wasn't, they never convicted him of that. It wasn't part of the deal here, right? So here we go. Inside, this is from FBI.gov, the history. Inside the vehicle was a powerful bomb. This is April 19th, 1995, made out of a deadly cocktail of agricultural fertilizer, diesel fuel, and other chemicals. McVeigh got out, locked the door, and headed towards his getaway car. He ignited one timed fuse, then another. At precisely 9:02 a.m., the bomb exploded. All right, so there you go. There's the official FBI statement straight from their website on what happened, the official story.
One of the weird things about the Oklahoma City bombing case is that in McVeigh's trial, I guess to finish up on this, McVeigh told his first defense attorneys that he had been working for the government. They panicked and were like, we do not want to be a part of this case. It eventually got taken over by another group of attorneys. Now, McVeigh never repeated that exact claim to them. He had only said it to his family and the first set of attorneys. And McVeigh always maintained to his second set of attorneys that there was no other conspirators. It was all him. Although still, no one ever figured out who built the bomb. But his second group of attorneys, they all thought that there were other conspirators. But if you have a defendant who won't tell you anything about them, what can you do about it? Not very much. But if old people like us remember, the manhunt for John Doe number 2 was the biggest manhunt in American history up to that point. Because the thing is basically every witness who saw McVeigh on the day of the bombing said he was with somebody else. And because of that, at the trial, they never put McVeigh, they don't even talk about where McVeigh was for the day and a half leading up to the actual bombing, because they couldn't put anyone on the stand that was a witness to what McVeigh had been doing, because they would have brought up another conspirator, and the government did not want to get into if other people at this point were involved in the crime. They were very much stuck with McVeigh was the only person who did it. Now, there could be evil reasons for doing that. If you don't know who the second guy is, why are you why do you want to muddy your case about who was responsible for what part of the crime? If the defendant's willing to go along with he's the only one responsible, it's not your job to make his defense earlier. Go with the theory of the case that he was the only one responsible. But that it is notable that like they never called a witness that like talked about where McVeigh was before the exact second the bomb went off.
And so that whoever that second person was, so we're saying that could have been a federal agent, right? And that's maybe why they disappeared from history.
I actually don't think it was a federal agent because there's an interesting whole story about who might be John Doe number 2. Here, I'm gonna give you a Wikipedia entry in the Discord.
All right. Sounds good.
Because there's this whole other bizarre case that I will eventually. Well, maybe I won't. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my thing's being confusing. All right.
Okay, boomer. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You get old.
I actually hate the term. I was just egging you on. Okay, but go ahead. I got this link. I'm putting it up.
There's the case of Kenneth Michael Trentadue, who so there were descriptions of John Doe number 2. They looked like this guy by the name of Kenneth Michael Trentadue. It's not him. They also look like this guy who his name's in the Wikipedia article, but I'm gonna have to find it. Anyways, so the deal with Kenneth is that he got picked up after the bombing, but before the trial happened. He got picked up crossing the Mexican. He got picked up on like our side of the Mexican border from some reasonably minor offense. Got taken to prison, and he dies. And the authorities contact his family and are like, your son died in our jail. Do you want us to cremate his body? We'll do it for free. And of course, his family's like, hold on, no, we want the body. We want an autopsy. And when they got the body, it was like really apparent that he had been beaten to death. The coroner for years wouldn't sign off on it being a suicide. That's what they claimed it was. And like after years of being bullied by the FBI about it, eventually agreed it was a suicide. But the reason why this case is important is that the guy's brother actually became an attorney because his brother had gotten killed in this prison, and was filing lawsuits about what happened to him. What about the investigation about his killing, stuff like that. And he got a phone call from someone who was investigating or talked a lot about the Oklahoma City case. And what that guy told him was that the reason why his brother had been picked up is because he looked really similar to this other guy named Richard Lee Guthrie, a member of the Aryan Republican Army, who was one of the chief suspects for being John Doe number 2, and that they thought maybe it was him and he had been killed in an interrogation. His wounds were generally consistent with having been killed during an interrogation. And that led to a whole other series of lawsuits, and those lawsuits were what led to the reveal of this thing called Operation PatCon, which was an operation the military was doing in the relevant time frame that was about placing veterans with right-wing militia groups in order to infiltrate them. And so the loop sort of gets closed back to McVeigh. For people wondering whatever happened with Richard Lee Guthrie, the guy who might have been John Doe number 2, he was on the lam when Kenneth got picked up. He eventually did get picked up by the authorities, I think on an armed robbery charge or something. But don't worry, he also promptly committed suicide in his jail cell immediately.
Oh, that's handy. That's he got Epsteined. Is that that's the term these days?
That seems to be. There have been rumors for a long time. I don't have the sites in front of me, but there have been rumors for a long time that Richard Lee Guthrie was an informant of some kind. But we don't know that, and he, vanished as soon as he got into custody after everything blew up.
Gotcha. So notably from this the first guy, Trentadue, He actually had right here. Trentadue's family maintains he was murdered by members of the FBI who mistakenly believed he was involved in the Oklahoma bombing, and that officials at the prison engaged in a cover-up. Oklahoma City's chief medical examiner said it was very likely he was murdered. Convicted bomber Timothy McVeigh stated that he believed Trentadue was mistaken for Richard Lee Guthrie Jr., what Axel was describing here, a suspected co-conspirator in the bombing who also died in federal custody, allegedly from suicide by hanging. Interesting how these people all end up dead. Weird, eh?
For the record, the official Kenneth, they also claimed died by hanging. So it was a real FU to people paying attention to the case that, yeah, we're just going to allegedly kill this other guy the exact same way.
Yeah, that's not good. That is not good. And so, again, we have this guy's family alleging the FBI murdered the individual. And then we have 2 hangings, apparently, quote, suicides. We've seen that before. We've got 2 high-profile suicides recently, don't we? We got the Epstein one a year and a half ago, something like that. And then we have McAfee that just ended up very much in a similar circumstance, eh?
What I thought was weird about that case was just that it took forever for them to say it was a hanging. Like, it was like at least a couple weeks. I was trying to figure out what the actual cause of death was. They didn't report what the actual cause of death was for weeks. I wonder if it has something to do with the way... this is boring. Sorry, guys. I wonder if this has something to do with the way that Spanish law works. Why would anyone care about how Spanish law reports strange deaths except for me? But...
Well, still, if it's a high-profile thing, you would expect that information would come out quickly, so people wouldn't, go all conspiracy, tinfoil hat style. So, I think that's part of it too, right? Like we're given like all the information, but it's not really all the information, and then we're given it in weird time frames, and some things are. Well, they just seem suspicious, and so I don't know. Like you're probably right. Like maybe there's some regular explanations for things like this. With it was a different jurisdiction. They handle things. Maybe they handle things properly, and they don't like instantly leak to the press that the second something happens. I mean, like God forbid somebody do something right out there. But isn't it funny that we live in a world where maybe somebody did something right in that McAfee prison, where maybe they said, well, we can't release any details until we, complete our investigation. That's the way it's supposed to go. So funny that maybe if that, again, I'm speculating, but maybe if that was the case, well, now we're suspicious because people are doing things the right way. It's just a funny world we live in. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not so sure what you said was boring there. So, okay, so just given that, so McVeigh had a possible co-conspirator, and maybe that one guy looked like the other dude. Both ended up dead, and McVeigh even mentioned the guy's name, that second guy, huh? Which
the story I heard, which I don't have in front of me in the book anymore, so I'm a little leery about saying this, but my remembrance of the book was that it actually was Timothy McVeigh that called the guy's brother to be like, that's why they killed this guy. And he reported being, because he had filed this lawsuit against the FBI. Imagine you file a lawsuit against not the FBI, but against the local government for killing your brother. And then you get a phone call from the highest profile prisoner in the country at the time going, oh, I know why they killed your brother. It was the FBI. They thought it was my co-conspirator. That's insane.
That's insane. Yeah, that is out there. That's one of those. Well, did they or didn't they? And I don't know. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's Osama bin Laden dialing you up in like 2006, being like, "Oh, I know why that your brother got killed. Let me tell you." Right.
Exactly. Not good. And again, suspicious in and of itself, right? So do you think how could that be like a troll or like a mind screw, right? Like, I don't know. The guy clearly knew him, right? How else would you know? How else would he know to make the phone call? I don't know. Like I said, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I remember from the book, that was what shocked him too. He was like, how does Timothy McVeigh even know about this case of this guy getting killed in prison? And it wasn't the same in Utah, I think. So yeah, that is a good question. How did Timothy McVeigh know about this case?
Right, and then know to make the phone call and say, oh, by the way, I know what happened. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot here that just seems upside down, but not just this. Again, with a lot of it, with the Whitmer stuff, and so the question is, how far do you think is too far? That's the question, right? How far are we pressing from the FBI to catch the terrorists, to get the bad guys, that we're giving them the needs and the methods and all the things, right? The support, everything they actually require to do whatever crime they're being pushed to do. At some point, the FBI's got to be liable for some of this, right? I mean, at some point, somebody's got to take a fall. Is there any case you can remember in recent history here that maybe the FBI got smacked down for taking a step too far? Or do they basically cover them up, right? I think they kind of just...
I mean, off the top of my head, not really. But even if judges complain about them all the time, even in the Kenneth case. I don't know if it's in the Wikipedia, but like later on in that development, the FBI, by all accounts, was like intimidating witnesses and telling them not to testify. They deny this. Allegedly, they were doing it. And even the judge was getting on their case with being like, you guys you say that you didn't intimidate this witness, that he called you trying to figure out how not to testify, but you won't give me the recording of the phone call. And there even was a thing where Kenneth's brother wanted to interview Terry Nichols in prison, who is the only other person that got convicted for the Oklahoma City bombing for helping McVeigh, but it wasn't with helping create the bomb or anything. And the first judge was like, yeah, let's let him interview him. And a federal appeals court eventually said no, vacated the judge's orders. And that was about in interviewing him to see if the FBI had been intimidating him about what he should testify to, that kind of stuff. And they bounced that. So my answer is that, yeah, the authorities normally cover up for the FBI's bad behavior.
All right, which sounds good enough to me. That would be my conclusion as well, only because there's case after case after case. Just do a little digging. We've got somewhere we're going to talk about. We got a third hour coming up. We're done here on the Fringe. So if you're listening to us on Fringe FM, you know the deal. Stay tuned for Joe Roop Lighting the Void. And if you're listening to us or watching us on Facebook, DLive, YouTube, Periscope, or the podcast feed, stick around for a third hour of Troubled Minds. Special thank you tonight to Axel Steele. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. Great stuff. I love your take on these things. Like I said, you back me off the cliff, which is a good combination. Sometimes it's easy to go just a little bit too far, and I appreciate you saying, no, let's not say that just yet. I appreciate that a lot. Thanks for being here with us tonight, man.
All right, well, thank you. And thank you for the Fringe listeners. If you're not following us to the third hour, I was glad to be on your radio for a little bit.
Thank you. So that's the deal. Stay tuned for Joe Roop Lighting the Void on Fringe FM. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange, and we're here with Axel Steele. Follow him on Twitter. Just search Axel Steele, AXLE Steele. You'll find him there. Go say hi. Give him some love where love is due. And at the end of this, you guys know the drill? Yeah, you know. You know what's going on. It's Thursday, so we're done. We're done for the week, and we'll be back on Monday with more Troubled Minds, Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific. And for now, be sure, be strong, be true. Stay tuned for a third hour. And thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night. What's up, guys? You know the drill. You're in for a third hour of Troubled Minds, so we're going to keep on going. We're looking for your phone calls. You guys been awfully quiet out there. Got a great comment here on DLive. Red Dice TV. Watch Red Dice TV says, Fed entrapment is how nationalist groups have become the number one threat to the United States. And, well, I can't say I disagree. There you go. If you guys want to be part of the show tonight, we're going to do a third hour here. We got Axel Steele, our secret weapon tonight, and we've got you. Don't forget, our secret weapon is also you. If you guys have comments on this, what do you think? What do you know about some of these cases? And do you have any other on the top of your mind that you might be able to describe as, well, suspicious, as maybe the feds stepping a little bit too far? And yeah, that's what we're talking about tonight. Entrapment, the FBI, and all of these crazy cases. Yeah, that. So 2-minute break. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds in 2 minutes. Be right back. Do your thing. Take a break. I'm telling you, take a break. All right, we'll be right back. 2 minutes. All right, welcome back to Troubled Minds. This is the third hour, and this is where we get weird. This is where, this is where you guys usually call and tell us what you think about this stuff. I had a feeling maybe we wouldn't have too much interest because it's hard to really know some of the details of these older FBI stories and some of the shenanigans that goes on, because they do seem to disappear from the news cycle, do they not? It seems like it kind of comes and goes, and there's a scandal, and then, well, the scandal goes away, and then the FBI is the, again, a bastion of security and justice after it all goes away. Welcome back to the show, Axel, if you're there. I'm just opening.
I'm still here.
All right. No rage quitting yet. Thank you. So I don't know. What do you think? How was your first radio foray for a couple segments there? 4 segments. You're official.
Oh, I thought it was fine. I'm just as Mike knows, my phone suicided itself last night. So I am a little mad I don't have the McVeigh book actually open in front of me, because it means I can't get all the names right. But otherwise, I'm good to go.
Gotcha. Axel's phone did not suicide itself. It did not. He was actually on Discord with us last night when it took a crap. It made a funny sound, and then I was like, what the hell happened to Axel? Yeah. All right. So, okay. Well, then so we're kind of at the point where we're, so Kelly just hopped in, but anything else you maybe, again, now we can roam a little bit from the narrative or whatever. Anything else you want to add? Maybe some cases or some ridiculousness or, I don't know. What do you think, Axel? Where should we go from here?
Well, that's a good question. I'm going to take a drink on air.
I've been doing it the whole time.
And then say, I have one more Timothy McVeigh story about that case that I think is pretty interesting that I'd like to relate here in the third hour. So one of the things is that, like I said, the manhunt for John Doe number 2 was like the largest in American history to find this co-conspirator. And what ended up in one day, they gave a press announcement. I think it was Janet Reno, which should be setting off everyone's warning bell alarms. The Janet Reno said, "Okay, we're not looking for more co-conspirators anymore." But the thing behind that is that when McVeigh was in the militia movement, he made several attempts to contact. I don't have the guy's name, but he made several attempts to contact this guy who was kind of like a prominent neo-Nazi. He wouldn't call himself a neo-Nazi, but we know who we're talking about here. And the guy clearly thought McVeigh was weird and bad news. McVeigh was approaching him under an alias, but the guy thought McVeigh was weird. He was bad news. Told his mom not to take his calls anymore. McVeigh actually came by his house once when he was there. He hid in the basement until he went away. They were just at like some gun show, because this guy was famous enough. His itinerary, people knew where he was going to be. And some guy just walked up to him at like the gun show and shook his hand and had a second person take a picture of the two of them. And he later learned after the Oklahoma City bombing, that the guy that had shook his hand when someone else was taking a picture was Timothy McVeigh. And he was like, what? And then he realized that it had been this guy who blew up the Oklahoma City building that had been trying to contact him for so long. And he was like, oh, they were trying to entrap me. Like, that's, one of the other points of evidence that maybe McVeigh was working for someone. But getting to the calling off the search for the second John Doe, the thing is that the prosecutors gave McVeigh's defense attorneys a record of the neo-Nazis' phone logs. that showed that the guy had like called Timothy McVeigh like for like 14 times in the weeks leading up to the bombing. And they were like, hey, you guys should go check this person out. So they went and found him, and he was like, I never called Timothy McVeigh. I wanted nothing to do with him. I didn't know who he was, so I saw his picture on the, all over the news. I in no way contacted him. And so the defense attorneys called the phone company, and they were like, can you give us your copies of his phone records? Because he claims he never made these calls. The phone company, and the guy gave the phone company permission to give it to him. The phone company gives him the records. None of the calls to McVeigh are on them. They were only on the documents that the prosecutors gave them. So they go to the prosecutors, and they're like, what are you talking about? Is this the real phone logs? We got them from the company. None of these calls are on there. The very next day, Janet Reno says that they're no longer searching for a John Doe number 2.
We found our man. What the?
So it does seem like maybe they were trying to stitch up someone else as a co-conspirator.
For the weird part is for what though, right? So if actual Timothy McVeigh was working for the feds himself, this is where it gets weird then, right? So if that's the case and they were part of this as a co-conspirator or not, then they let it go too far, right? I mean, shouldn't they have like hooked this guy up the second he like drove that truck up to the building, or even before that point? I mean, there's some weirdness with this. I
will say the book I was talking about, Aberration in the Heartland, The Lives of Timothy McVeigh, it makes a lot of really interesting points, but I don't really have I don't know if McVeigh had a lot of contacts with the military. And like a lot of these people, too, he sort of suspiciously always had money but had no visible means of supporting himself. And so he looks kind of like an informant or someone who's working with the government. But I don't know if he was. I don't know what the end game was. It does seem like this one neo-Nazi guy just kind of bothered them, and they were maybe trying to get him out of the picture for one reason or another. Really wish I remembered what that guy's name was, because he was... Some people might recognize him. There also is the weird case where, like, one of the other people that was, like, in the same militia groups McVeigh was, and maybe they think might have built the bomb. He's one of the suspects that was never charged. He's still around in the conspiracy community as one of the guys that says he can detect alien implants. So... and I don't have that guy's name off the top of my head either, but there's people still connected with this case that are kind of like around in the UFO community for whatever bizarre reason.
That's odd. That's super odd. Some kind of connection with the FBI and this sort of stuff. Hey, we're taking your phone calls, guys. What do you think about this stuff? Does it surprise you? Do you think that we're off base? Do you think whatever? Like we're open to all this. Again, we're just a couple folks here talking about these things, and again. A lot of the details for most of these cases are hidden, redacted, right? I mean, many of these things, it doesn't actually make it to public record for various reasons, clearly, sources and methods, all this type of stuff, right? And that's what we're talking about, what we're discussing tonight. Are you surprised that the FBI may be overstepping in maybe pushing terrorists to commit crimes? Quote, terrorists, before they're terrorists. So basically, that would be the FBI making terrorists out of people that may or may not have become one anyway. Weird. No? Weird. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Get your ass in here. We'd love to hear from you. And Kelly, anything to add to that, Axel? And then we got Kelly here. We'll go to him.
Oh, well, we can go to Kelly.
Kelly, what's up, buddy? Are you there?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Chilling, man. Doing our thing. Talking about conspiratorial shit tonight. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Listening in and see how you guys are doing. And, wow, I just want to say good job, Axel, on some of your investigations or your work into some of these cases. Pretty good.
And just reading books and looking around on the internet.
Sometimes that's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's what most people do, too. I mean, that's good stuff, though, but, a lot of people don't do that, you know what I mean? So I'm just want to give you a good heads up. But I was wondering if you, some of these cases that you've looked into, if you ever looked into this, the latest, well, not the latest one, but the one that happened recently. It was in Vegas with Steve Paddock.
Paddock is... Sorry, keep going, Kelly.
No, I was just going to say, too, it kind of reminds me when you guys were just talking about what would if McVeigh was working for the FBI, why would he do something else? But for me, that's because they're patsies, like Steve Paddock. For me, I believe Steve Paddock was a patsy in some retrospect. You know what I mean? And they had to let him go or kill him off something.
Do you think he wasn't the shooter?
I don't think he was the one that was shooting out the window. I don't think so. I mean, he had his body there, and the way they have, some of the pictures are, it doesn't make no sense. Not to me anyway, because I've done some stuff when I was, growing up. I was, all pre-military. I did a lot of stuff. It was called Law Enforcement Explorer. We had to do a lot of, photo investigations with some of the, they just only showed us pictures, and we had to just, decipher with some of those with like if they were murder, suicide, or accidental.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the pictures that I was looking at, I mean, the shit was like a joke to me. The gun was like exactly in his hands, or if they went in there was just too many stuff that was just didn't add up, and there was not enough information that was given out. And then when finally it was probably like a year and a half later or something, they come out with a video and they show him like going in an elevator with a couple suitcases. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, they're trying to say the type of weapons that man had and how many. He would have been going up and down a few more times than that.
The Paddock case for me is really, it's one of those ones that I have looked into it quite deeply. I've read the police reports. I've talked to people about it. I've looked into Paddock to the extent I can. He was a part owner of two planes. He was like a co-owner of a plane with like some other East Coast company that was like vaguely connected to the CIA. Like he has a lot of really weird, I'd say like half connections to, like he worked for Lockheed Martin as an auditor. He worked for the IRS before that. He then somehow he claimed to be a professional gambler on video poker machines, but it seems pretty clear that it's pretty clear to me that his video poker career was like money laundering basically, because he didn't have a real job, but he like owned apartment buildings and stuff, and no one ever was able to figure out. I've never heard of how he got the money to do that. And he would do things like he'd buy apartment buildings, then sell them and buy new ones, then sell them and buy new ones. And then just in the last couple years of his life, he dropped like $200,000 on guns in the 12 months up to the shooting without really having a history of being a gun enthusiast before that. And then he goes to a hotel room, gets every single gun out and puts them all around the room so that he can then use 6 guns to shoot people. Yeah, you can see the crime scene photos. Every surface has got guns on it in that hotel room.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean that's why I was gonna. That's what now that you're talking about it, I just wanted to see, because even like some of the pictures I showed, I remember the very first time we were talking about this with you, Mike, and I showed a photo that my stepson had taken, but it was from the backside, I guess, from the freeway.
Yeah.
But even from the backside of it, it still had like windows blown out. I mean, they were like, there was missing windows, because the whole thing is gold, all the mirrors and stuff. But yeah, there was like, I don't know, I still have the picture too. And it still shows like, I was counting it the other day. I was just going through my photos real quick, and I just happened to run across that one, and I opened it up again. But even in the backside of it, it had like, man, and those windows are not, I mean, those are heavy ass windows. And there was probably like maybe 4 or 5 that was probably taken out on the backside. So I don't know what was up with all that. I mean, that whole situation is just, it just reeks that it was, it's got to be like we were talking here, FBI something.
I mean, putting my cards on the table, I mean, he's dead, he can't sue me. But I think that Paddock, he to me looks like some sort of criminal. Doesn't mean he's not an informant or something. But to me, he looks like a criminal. I get the feeling that he was involved in like some sort of smuggling business or something. That seems to me would be why you would like be doing not own buildings, but constantly be turning them over and around, because like you're putting things in those buildings, but you can't stay in one place for too long because people will start to get suspicious. So you sell one apartment building, buy another one, etc. And it is also true that in the couple years up to the shooting, his net worth took like a serious nosedive. Like I think in 2017 he was worth like $3 million, and then by 2019 he was worth less than $1 million. And so to me it seems like he was someone that was involved in some sort of shady business that got cut off. And then I guess maybe he was getting into gun smuggling or something. He also has the Filipino girlfriend that he was, sending hundreds of thousands of dollars to when she was in the Philippines and he was in Las Vegas in the days before the attack. So whatever. Well, and I will not say what I think she might have been up to because she is still alive.
Right.
Yeah. There was other conspiracies, probably that came with that. But I mean, it wasn't a conspiracy. They were known facts that there's something like there was a prince of some Arabic country, right? Was there. And yeah, there was kind of a link to him saying that like what you're saying is that it could be gun smuggling. He was a gun runner. And that's my suspicion, that he was a gun runner for somebody, and something went bad, and it all hell broke loose. You know what I mean? And then it didn't end up. They had to kind of cover their tracks with trying to shoot down at the.
Yeah, he's also an interesting case of the official story is it was only him ever in the 2 hotel rooms that he had checked out, but there are witnesses at the hotel that got interviewed that said he was with someone at the hotel. There's also bizarrely this guy on Facebook after the shooting posted his copy of a receipt, because he was like, I mean, it's not a great Facebook post. He basically was like, LOL, I just gave food to that guy that did the shooting like 3 days ago. But he had a copy of the receipt he put on Facebook. It's gone now, and unfortunately the picture was on my phone. But you can find if you look around. But the receipt said that there were 2 occupants, and it was for 2 dinners and 2 Pepsis.
Yep.
Wow.
I remember. Yep. I was clearly I'm in Vegas. I was here when that stuff went down. Like I've told you guys, I was listening to that on the police scanner as it happened. As luck would have it, there was something that went down across the street from the house here like a week prior to that. And I'm not like a police scanner nerd. I don't listen to that stuff usually. But it was like 3 a.m, and there were cops out front. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to go walk up at 3 a.m. on cops when I don't know what the hell's going on. Right? I might be the one to get shot. So I downloaded a police scanner and was just trying to see what was going on across the street from my house. I didn't find anything. I think it was some domestic disturbance or some other shit. And those people moved out like a month later or something. So it was really no big deal. But I happened to have a police scanner on my phone. And so the next week when that shit went down, it literally sent me a notification, shots fired in Vegas. And I was like, what the hell? So I was literally able to pull it up and hear like the first calls of shots fired straight on the thing as it happened in real time. I listened to that thing the whole freaking night. Horrifying, man. I'm with you, Axel. I've read the whole police report. I watched the press conferences out here. There's some weird shit with that. Remember the sheriff out here, Sheriff Lombardo is his name? And he had the FBI guy standing behind him like a goon, And so the press would ask the sheriff questions, and then he'd turn his head to see if he could answer the question. The FBI guy would nod yes or no. I mean, there's a lot of shit that was just so sketchy with that entire thing. It's not good, man.
Well, I mean, what have you heard in Las Vegas? Like, what's the word on the street about it?
I've heard that I've actually asked cops out here, and they won't talk about it. People won't talk about it. It's one of those ones that there seems to be like a code of silence around it, because it's probably about right the most rich people in the country, right, that own MGM or the casinos out here, right? Like there's huge powerful investors as part of those groups, and for whether it's just for cover-up purposes or what have you, official people don't want to talk about it. But of course the unofficial people are all, like me, suspicious as hell. And so that's kind of the word on the street, is that it's sketchy. So there's some people that do believe the man just snapped, But I don't know. I think everything else does not point to that at all. That's just, yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, I agree with Kelly in the sense of I don't see why you would take 150 guns to a room unless it was some sort of deal. Like, even if you are planning to commit a mass shooting, and it is, well, at least they say that he had been searching on his computer for things like outdoor concerts or like looking for other target sites. Although, is that true? But yeah, it's, even if you were planning to do that, you wouldn't take a bunch of guns that you clearly weren't going to use because they're like pistols or they don't have optics or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, all you need is 2 guns, right? Not even that, and then just more ammo than anything, and just swap those mags out like crazy, right? You need a pallet of like preloaded mags is what you need, not 500 guns. That's stupid. It's just the whole thing is dumb.
Yeah, there's the thing where his girlfriend was like, "Yeah, my fingerprints are on the ammo because I was helping him pack magazines one day," which is just like a bizarre detail. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, you know what? For me, too, is it's the type of weapons. Because if you look at the pictures inside of them, some of those weapons, especially the tri-mounted weapon that he had out the window, you know what I mean? Those are some weapons that are like, those are pretty high grade. Some people's going to be spending some money on those type of weapons. They're not just, because and the type of weapons, like you're saying, they were like on every surface. They were laying around everywhere. It was like ridiculous setup. It's there was another one I like just real quick to maybe change it up. But this is an older one about Waco, Texas.
Waco. Yep.
I mean,
you got anything on that? There,
I mean, I haven't looked. I mean. Okay, it was Waco, Texas, my understanding. I haven't looked super deep into it. But, it was definitely a PR stunt in the sense of David Koresh, until the FBI besieged the compound, he was, like, in the town every day. So if they had wanted to arrest him, it would have been easy. You just would wait for them to come into town and grab him. So the whole thing being a siege was kind of a setup. Timothy McVeigh was there. He came, he was, like, part of a group of people that came sort of, like, vaguely in support of the Branch Davidians that were like in the town. He was actually there when the fire happened. We're connecting all these things together.
Interesting.
But I don't know that much about Waco. I know the Timothy McVeigh things. I've looked into Timothy McVeigh, but Waco was a little. I'm not that old. I wasn't really politically aware when Waco was going on. I mean, I remember it happening, like, seeing the news reports, but I wasn't like paying attention to politics back then. I mean, what's your take on Waco?
I don't know, man. That was I was kind of hoping that you got a little bit more detail, but from with mine, I know that was a little bit over. That was way extreme. I mean, they bombed a whole family and burned them down to the ground, kids and all. I mean,
oh yeah, it was one of the McVeigh's official motives. In part involved how bad Waco was. It was one of the things he claimed to be, but maybe he was. I mean, there is the chance that he was someone that at one point was working for the government, and then you hang out with people that really don't like the government, and things like Waco and Ruby Ridge are happening. You might turn into someone that it does consider doing something radical about it.
Yeah, with everything going on right now, too, man, is where you see all these radical groups, just popping up everywhere.
I mean, I don't know. Do you know anything about Waco, Mike?
Not enough. I was like you. I'm not quite old enough to have been, super interested in when that went down. And you see how they get us, though, right? Like you take your eye off the ball, or you're a little bit too young. When I was young, I was like everybody else, just trying to get high and get laid, right? Well, I wasn't trying to get high, but like most youngsters are like just not tuned in to what the hell's going on, and as a result, this shit just goes on, right? They just get away with it. And then the people that are, care about it, then the press covers things up, and yeah. So what I do remember is that they just like Kelly said, they stormed that place and they burned the shit down, and they killed a lot of people. And you're like what? Why? Like, what the hell's going on here? And, it was the ATF thought they were stockpiling weapons and all the rest of this. But like you said, they'd been there for years. So at what point does it become a siege type situation? And when do you need 900 agents to storm the place? And I don't know. It seems suspect, does it not? I mean, how does one guy hold all those people hostage if that's really what's happening, right? I mean, it's so much doesn't make sense about it now. But again, we were young men then. Like, I don't know. I don't know enough about it, unfortunately.
It is true that tear gas grenades do start fires on a regular basis, which is something that it seems like they should design them not to do that.
Right? Totally. Yeah. How about you, Kelly? What do you know about the Waco stuff?
I'm like you guys. I remember when it happened, but it was just like the investigations that were afterward. That a lot of these people that. There are some good ones that are on YouTube if you guys go check them out. But yeah, I mean, but there was seriously no reason for the FBI. I mean, these people didn't have like a major shootout with them. These, I mean, they were in the house, right? And I believe they said there were shots fired. Of course they're going to play that. But I mean, they knew there was women and children in there, and how many people. But then that extreme is just, I mean, I don't know. That's what pissed a lot of people off. I still remember it. Because it was. I don't remember like you guys. I don't remember a lot of details per se, but just hearing that, I mean, it was that caused a lot of problems for them as well.
Being cynical, one can't help but after the fall of the Soviet Union. The Berlin Wall comes down in 89. The Soviet state collapses, I think, in 91, 92. There was a real push to how are we going to justify our phony baloney jobs, basically? There needed to be something. And in the 90s, there was a real push to have it be, right-wing militants in the United States. And then... then after September 11th, obviously that changed, and the war on terror is 20 years old now. It doesn't have the same juice it did before, and it does look like we're back to trying to say that it's domestic groups that are the real threat that we all have to be scared of.
Which is a shame. And which is a shame.
And bringing things back to sort of the FBI stuff. I mean, this has been true in a lot of places. If the people you want everyone to be scared of aren't scary enough, well, then you can give them a little help.
You can throw gasoline on that fire. No problem.
Yeah, those are tactics that the other 3 digits, 3 letters uses as well. I mean, those guys been doing tactics like that for who knows how long,
It's the strategy. Jesus, it's the strategy of tension that was used in Europe, for example, by the CIA for years. Although I think that's probably a different show. Do CIA in Europe, a different show.
Oh yeah, that's another rabbit hole too in itself.
Agreed. So what do you think about this, the Whitmer stuff, Kelly? Did you think that, like we were describing, that there may have been political motivations? Do you think that the FBI overstepped? Do you think if they had kept hands off and maybe just monitored this group, do you think this, quote, kidnapping plot ever would have got off the ground?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have never even heard of this story, man. I mean, we don't watch TV. Literally, we don't watch TV.
Good for you.
Yeah. We don't. I mean, well, one time, we have one basic channel up in the north, and that's it. And that's what we watch, man. For weather, because for our type of job.
You got to know the weather, man.
Sometimes you can't even trust that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I never even heard of this case. Really, I mean, this is kind of that's why it was interesting to me because, yeah, I mean, these tactics from these departments have been going on for since what's his name? He was running it for years,
Hoover,
or trying to take down the mafia and stuff.
Yeah, Hoover, right? J. Edgar Hoover.
That's correct.
Yeah, that guy's the dirtiest of the dirty. Go ahead, Axel.
I was just trying to take down and also working with the mafia. He did both.
That's what it would trip me out when the first time I heard that stories. I was like, you know, it's just these governments too. You know, they have to rub elbows with these people. You know what I mean? They got to do something for one thing because it's like trading favors or something. It's just like all that cocaine and shit coming down from South America. That shit is just not, you know, coming over from illegals crossing over the border, man. That shit's flown in on planes, on boats.
Every once in a while, they nab, you know, some American colonel will go down because he's for smuggling a bunch of cocaine into the country. And every time I see one of those stories, I am a little bit like, is this just a case of them busting someone for doing privately what they are not supposed? Are they busting someone from skimming off the top, basically? Because it seems like it'd be hard to put tons of cocaine on a military plane without somebody noticing.
I think so for sure. And you know, like it like I said before with the whole drug dealing stuff, it's pretty well known, right? That most of the, I don't know, upper echelon are dealing with this. The elites, right? They're like, this has been like they said that Bill Clinton and Hillary were dealing drugs, running drugs through the South back in when he was governor of Arkansas. I mean, like this is the type of stuff that, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's true, but would it surprise me if it's true? Nah, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've said this on the show before, but it's important to realize that like big organized crime cartels and the government are not completely separate entities. Like they work with each other to some, and they fight each other, but they also to some degree work with each other. Either, you know, the DEA making a deal with the Mexican cartel, or on the other side, you know, the mafia owning a particular mayor or something.
Absolutely. This is a real thing. This is the world we live in. What else you got, Kelly? Anything else for tonight, man? What do you think?
Oh no, man. Wanted to kind of see what he thoughts on on those two particular ones, but it was good show, man. I mean, I've been down some of those. You know, I study a lot of those, and but I haven't done that in quite some time, man. It almost kind of shocked me back into maybe I should take a look at that a little bit more. You know.
I think they should teach like a conspiracy theory at college now. It should be like a curriculum where they're like, well, we have some actual conspiracy facts we want to tell you about, and then they'll bring up the FBI and the CIA. Well, of course, which would never be allowed because, well, you know why. You already know why. But yeah. So we shocked you back into the real world, huh? That's a good thing.
Oh, and it was just like to take a look more back into that, you know, because you got to keep these guys under a microscope, man, because if you don't, they're going to start running fucking wild, man. They do it anyway, but, you know what I mean? You got to keep a track of some of this shit. I mean, because, you know, even if it's hard to, because in the court systems, man, some of these judges, you know, of course they're ex-lawyers and shit, you know what I mean? You know, who knows what kind of deals are going to be happening in the back, but, man, it's a tough one. But yeah, you got to say, I just haven't been staying up on this stuff for a while. Yeah,
it's hard.
In most states, you have to be a lawyer to be a judge. You have to be a member of the judicial bar to be a judge, which means you have to be a lawyer. So it's a requirement in most states. Not every state. They tend to all be anyways, but in some states, technically, they don't have to be. Supreme Court, for example, you can appoint anyone you want to the Supreme Court. Now we tend to only appoint appellate judges, but in the olden days, they sometimes would appoint like law school deans and stuff. But the Supreme Court can technically anyone can be appointed to it.
Interesting. All right, guys. You guys have a good evening.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it, my man. You're the best. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right, later.
There you go. Let's go to Jay. Anything else? We're taking your calls tonight. What do you guys think? Lots of good chat out there, but you guys are a little shy. Nobody wants to get raided tonight. Of course, I'm only kidding, mostly. But
he brought up the Paddock case, and I really forgot that you did live you were in Las Vegas. We should have jumped to your insight on it earlier.
Yeah, no, we can talk about it if you want to talk about Vegas for sure. There's a lot there, man. So there's. I was listening to the. Do you want to hear this? Who wants to hear this? Here in the chat. Do you guys want to hear about the Vegas shooting from somebody who was here when it went down? I wasn't down there, of course, because I don't live anywhere near the Strip. Because sane people don't live anywhere near the Vegas Strip. If you live in Vegas, but if you want to hear about it, I'd love to talk about it. It's weird, man. So, like I said, by that odd twist of coincidence, I had the police scanner on my phone, which I don't now. I didn't before that, like maybe a week before that. And so I listened to the whole thing in real time and was shocked. There were, shots fired at the Bellagio. There were, reports of just all kinds of chaotic shit everywhere. There were, 100 ambulances at Hooters down there, which is no longer Hooters. They've changed the name to, some other, I can't remember the name of the hotel. But like just so many crazy things. I don't know why you need 100 ambulances at Hooters, right? When the damn thing's going on at Mandalay Bay, which is, more than a mile apart. It didn't seem, there were just a lot of things that didn't seem correct about it. Again, shots fired in different places. I think I heard places as far as Bellagio shots fired. I heard the Flamingo shots fired. This is straight from the police scanner. Shots fired in not Mandalay Bay also, but what's the other one? Oh, in the lobby of Mandalay Bay. So it wasn't even up above. They said there were shots fired actually downstairs where the hotel check-in is. So, and this is all right off the radio scanner, the police scanner. I think those files, those MP3s are still out there if you guys can dig them up and you want to go listen to it. But it's shocking. It's some of the stuff, and I get it. It's like a chaotic time, and people are reporting all kinds of shit, so they have to take all of it seriously. So maybe some of that is fake. Maybe some of that is misunderstandings or whatever. And there were suspects being detained, arrested all over the damn place downstairs because they had no idea where the shots were coming from at first. There's a lot of crazy shit with that. And then not only that, after the incident, right? They say it was 11 minutes of shooting. That was it. 11 minutes this guy shot for, right? And I've read that entire police report as well. And there's some other bizarre stuff. Did you note anything else that was really strange about that police report that maybe comes to top of your mind there?
I mean, there's a discrepancy in there because this is getting a bit granular. The official story, I think, is that he checked in on the 28th or something like that. But in the police report, they reprint the logs of the key cards in the doors, and according to those logs, a key card with his name on it logged in on the 27th. I know that seems like a minor deal, and it might literally just be a mix-up at some point about what they were reporting, but I did kind of find that interesting where he checked in a day earlier than the official records indicate.
Yeah, and so there's that. There's discrepancies with that. Like I said, they said nobody was there, but he had dinner for two that one night. And there's actually, I think on the cart, there's like a little cart that was outside in the photographs, the crime scene photographs of like the little tray with like dinner on it for two people as well. I think that kind of corroborates that receipt that you said was on Facebook.
In the crime scene photos, I noticed that there's like a little table sort of in the middle of the room. It has 2 glasses of water on it. That's what I noticed.
Right, things like that, right? Like it could be him, right, getting a second glass of water type stuff. But I don't know. So there's a lot of suspicious stuff there. But then what's also weird is that he was reported that remember his laptop and his hard drives went missing. So they said that he had a habit of removing his hard drives. Remember all this? And that his brother had kiddie porn on his hard drive, on his laptop or some other shit.
His family are complete freaks as far as I can tell.
It seems like it. But then so if you guys read the police report, which probably many of you didn't, because like I said, I live here and I was super following it extremely closely. There was that weirdness with the way the information came out to the press with the FBI. They needed to ask permission to even answer questions from the sheriff here, stuff like that. There were questions in particular they wouldn't even touch. And if you were even conspiratorial just a little bit, they wouldn't even let you into those press conferences. There's an actual reporter that was here. Her name is Laura Loomer. You guys may know her. She ran for Congress in, I think it was Florida, for a congressional seat. And she's a right winger. She's like the media's delight of a right winger, because they can just say all the crazy crap about her. Because, well, a lot of the stuff she does is out there. Like she made a scene at the Twitter building and handcuffed herself to the Twitter building. So the only reason I'm telling you all this is because she's kind of like a publicity stunt type person, right? So she's the kind of person that will show up at this and say, I'm a reporter, and ask like crazy questions. Well, they kicked her out of there. They're like, we're not doing this. So she was there in Vegas with like trying to ask questions of the sheriff, and they just booted her out. And so who knows how many others, like I said, publicity stunt type person, but I don't know. It's suspicious as hell, isn't it? And then, so again, notably in the police report, they had like his Google searches in there. Do you remember that, Axel, at all? Yeah. And so, go ahead.
Oh, I was just they did, but and they were part of the evidence that it had to be him. He was looking for other sites and stuff like that. Although, to be conspiracy minded, I will point out that there's no corroboration for any of that. It's just the police telling us what was on his computer.
Well, exactly. So, but that's in the police report. So you would expect there's some basis there, right? So, but now, okay, so notably, again, he said that, or the press report was that this guy had a habit of removing his hard drives from his laptops, right? So that when they went in and they got his laptop, there was no hard drive, which means no hard drive, no data, no anything, right? You can only find maybe metadata from pinging or subpoenaing, subpoenaing, is that a term? Getting a subpoena from the ISP, right, the Internet Service Provider. Well, and then you get the Google records and things like this that he was searching. So with that, one of the search terms that he supposedly did was he searched how to remove the hard drive from his particular laptop, like his actual model of the laptop, which is like, okay, so does that sound like what somebody would do if they were in the habit of removing their hard drives all the time? Have to search it? Yeah, shit. Let's see how to do this again.
Well, Mike, I'm concerned that in my murder-suicide plot, my hard drive will be in my laptop when they find my body. And so I'm going to remove that, but keep the laptop, even though my plan is to kill myself at some point very soon.
Right?
Why don't you just get rid of the whole thing? Why would you keep the laptop in your room?
Yeah. And so as we know, the official story is those hard drives have never showed up. So they say that he took them out, removed them completely from the residence, the hotel, whatever it was, and they're gone. And so now they don't have the information on there anyway. But I don't know. See, again, like there's so much that's suspect about all of that. It just doesn't make sense. A lot of it doesn't make sense.
Oh, there's also the totally weird. There's the weird thing about the security guard where like so there's a security guard that ended up getting shot through the door by whoever was doing the shooting. And he was a member of like whatever union down there is for service workers. And he was, being interviewed. He was going to get interviewed
by Ellen.
And he was like,
Ellen.
Well, no. This is before that, he was going to get interviewed by other people, and he just vanished. Like he was in a room with representatives of his union and some other people talking to the media, and then he leaves the room. He disappears. They find out that Mandalay Bay had like sent him on a vacation out of the country. And then he comes back and he does one interview with Ellen, which also people's alarm should be going off when people say Ellen. But he does one interview with Ellen, and you guys can look it up. It is so clearly stage managed. Ellen is feeding him the answer to every question. She's like, and then that's when you saw X, right? And he'd go, yes, that's when I saw X. And he is barely answering questions, and they never let him do any other media at all. It was the one interview they gave him, where before that he was supposed to like talk to a bunch of reporters and stuff. So they clearly did not want him talking.
Yeah, he was.
And I presume he got a check from Mandalay Bay sufficient to convince him to not talk.
To just shut his damn mouth, yeah. And that's the part, right? That's the weirdness of all of this. It's like, hold on, what are we trying to do here? Just like maybe trim out the legal liability for like the big money hotels? Is that what's going on?
Yeah,
here?
there is a problem here because there's bad reasons that aren't it's some weird government cover-up, right? Like, I mean, tourism obviously is Vegas's number one industry. You don't really want Vegas come here and get shot in a mass shooting incident, right? There is all sorts of legal liability. I'm sure there's been 1,000 lawsuits about this case, and so Mandalay Bay might be, do not say anything that is not on this script because we do not want to have to pay out 123 wrongful death claims or whatever.
Yep. And so again, and I think that's part of that conspiracy too. And now there's not even a memorial or anything down there. It's like this is one of those 1984 memory hole moments, right? Where they're like, they don't want to remind anybody that this shit happened because clearly, if it happened once, right, it could happen again. So right down there at like ground zero of where that shooting happened, no, it was not turned into like a memorial to the people. They've paved it and turned it into a parking lot for the Raiders stadium. So
there was no manifesto, no motive. I find that deeply suspicious in the sense of like, if I was gonna take the conspiracy juice and go, maybe it wasn't him, or maybe there was a cover up. The lack of the manifest, the lack of any motive is what would sort of convince me. Like, okay, well, maybe there's no motive because it wasn't him. I don't know if I believe that, but that would be one angle. But also, maybe the manifesto was saying things they didn't want to get out, and so that's why it's never surfaced, right? Like, it also didn't it take the cops like an hour to go into the room? I will state for the record, I'm not sure I believe that. It took an hour for them to say they went in the room.
Yeah, exactly. And especially imagine if like they say there was only 11 minutes to shooting and they waited an hour with no sound in there, right? If the guy shot himself, it would be quiet as a church mouse in there. And they still waited. They still waited. Yeah, I don't know. Well, crazy stuff. I
mean, enough time for maybe someone else to go into the room and do some things, and then the police officially come in. I would say if I was going to go down the conspiracy angle, maybe. Not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that, I mean, that's kind of why I'm suspicious about it. And of course, there are people like the Mandalay Bay that would have every reason to want to get someone in that room first.
Right, of course. Like you want to manage that, but then all that stuff leaked anyway. Like that's the craziest part, right? Like all those photographs actually leaked, the crime scene photos. They never officially released them, as far as I'm aware. I think they actually were public as part of a leak. So again, more weirdness to all this. Hey guys, if you're just joining us, we're kind of rabbit holing a little bit on the Vegas shooting. We're talking about FBI cover-ups tonight and this other stuff. We started with the Gretchen Whitmore, or is that in Whitmer? And yeah, I mean, nutty stuff. I mean, I'm happy to talk about the Vegas shooting all day. I'd even love to at some point pull up the police report and go through that thing because it is facepalm stupid. It's just like, really? This is what we're supposed to believe. Like I said, there's some things in there, specifically, like I said, for people that remove their hard drives from their laptop. If you've done one, you can do 100, right? Like, it's the same process every freaking time. Has anybody ever removed? Maybe not an Apple machine, right? But you see what I'm saying? Like if it's an HP machine, you can do a Dell. Like you turn the thing over, you take the screws out, you unplug the hard drive, you unscrew it, and you take it out. It's not that hard. And so that's part of the point, right? So he's notably taken out these hard drives, known for doing it, they say, because they didn't find any hard drives at his house that I'm aware as well. And so he's Googling how to do it at Mandalay Bay just before, like you said, just before he kills himself. It doesn't make any sense. None of that makes any sense.
People might find evidence about his previous criminal acts after he commits the largest mass shooting in American history.
Exactly. And commit suicide.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Makes no sense. All right, so we got Jay. Let's go to Jay. We're looking to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about any of this stuff we've talked about tonight? We come to ranging far and wide, and love to hear from you. We got time for you yet? We got about another 10 minutes or so. 702-957-1037. Thanks again to Axel Steele for hanging out with us tonight, talking about all kinds of. It's a little tough to talk about this stuff because you gotta tread lightly sometimes. It's making sweeping conspiracy claims about 3-letter organizations is not the easiest topic. So thank you again, Axel, for hanging hanging out with us and taking on the tough topic here. Appreciate that a lot.
Thank you. You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Let's go to Jay. Jay in New York. You're on with Mike and Axel. How are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic, Mike. Great. I love the way the show went today, talking about all the different ones. I want to ask both of you guys a question. Have you guys ever heard of Jiverly Wong and the Civic Association shooting in Binghamton, New York?
No. News to me.
Nope.
Mike?
Nope.
So basically, we have a civic association here where there's people come and get their citizenship, learn to speak English. It's a community center, all kinds of stuff like that. Some guy goes to whatever the big box gun store was, gets a couple of guns, goes in there, parks the car on the back door so no one can run out the back. Kind of weird. Goes in there and starts shooting people up. But one of the things that I thought was really weird about that story is nobody's heard about it. We have a monument built with the 18. There was, I can't remember. I sent you the link in the Discord personal chat.
I got it up. It's
X amount of people died, and they built a memorial with white doves of them flying away because they were flying to America to get their citizenship and be citizens here, and they didn't make it. And well, he was one of them, and they made him take his particular statue thing down. It was a big to-do. It was in the papers and everything here for a long time. But
I had never heard of this, and it was recent too. It was 12 years ago. I was certainly following the news back then.
Right. I mean, we were working on a building, and I heard the helicopter coming because it was flying so low. And I go over and look out the window, and I'm like, dude, there's something seriously going on in town, downtown right now. And they're like, how do you know it? I said, see that helicopter right there? That's an FBI helicopter. And they're like, how do you know that? And I said, look at the sticker on the side of it. It was that close. It says FBI. Yeah. But anyway, there's part of that. Maybe, I don't know. I think that should be for after hours and just move on to what you guys had going on there in Vegas, because you guys have some of the largest gun shows there are in probably like the world, right, Mike? I mean, have you ever?
We do a shot show every year. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, televised and stuff like that. That's what makes a lot of big to do in the shooting world. And I personally know people who carry quite a few guns out there to buy, sell, trade. Because
that's a good point. That's a hell of a point. It is sort of the so California right next door, right? So it's 4 hours to LA from here, and less than that to the California border. Like to the California border here's probably like an hour and a half, something like that. Not even that. But from Vegas proper, less than an hour. So if you're going to be maybe smuggling guns into California, right? They're legal here, they're not legal there. This is definitely one of those hubs of where you would be able to do something like that. So that's a good point. Go ahead, Jay.
And I think that dude would have had to go completely off the rails to do. What would make you do that? I'm going to take everything I've got and everything and run it upstairs into the whatever floor of the hotel and bust out one of those windows, which I will tell you right now, I've thrown sledgehammers, bricks, everything that you could think of trying to break one of those things because you just don't want to pick it up because they're so heavy. I mean, that was effort. That was a lot of effort. You think you'd go about it a different way, if that was your intention. His
finances were deteriorating quickly. And if I was going to, stick to the official story and what could the motive have been, whatever business he had been involved in and he was making his money seems to have stopped happening. That's one of the reasons why I don't believe the professional gambler line, because professional gamblers, if that's what they do for a living, at his age, he was like in his 60s, I think, they've discovered a way to make money doing it. Like his finances were steeply dropped. Like after 20 years of being a professional gambler, he just forgot how to do it in the last year.
No,
however, he was playing video poker machines to make money.
No, so somebody who actually did pay their bills gambling. I was playing online poker, like I told you, Axel. as far as I'm aware, you can't make a profit at video poker. Like, those games are rigged. Like, you're not, like, that's why a poker player, an actual poker player, doesn't play video poker, because that shit is rigged. So how the hell was this guy like even if you do all the cards and the this and the that and the points, and there's no freaking chance. Are you kidding me? So this guy was so smart, he was making a living playing video poker. I think it's bullshit, and I think you're right that it was probably more like he was up to something nefarious, and the video poker was a way to launder that money. I'm pretty sure that was the case, because there's no, you can't make money doing that. It's not.
Casinos are like
video poker. You make enough money to keep playing. You know, that's basically what, you know, every once in a while you hit it big. When I lived in South Dakota, that's all we had was video machines.
But it's grinding you down. You're going down. You're not going up.
Right. But it's enough to keep you playing, so you're getting the free beer and the free sandwich and, you know, whatever like that is. And then maybe you're one of the lucky ones that get the ding, 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 ding. And if you're smart enough, you take your $5,000 and run.
You get the hell out of here.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, you're not making money on video poker, and that's probably, you know, so. And I don't know, just all of them, you know, even the one that you started off with, Whitmer. If you ever had that FBI informant or whatever that was in there doing all that thing, don't you think if you were really an agent of the government, wouldn't you be like, hey, man, instead of taking all these guns and everything down there, why don't we go down there and like do it with some lawyers and stuff for probably a hell of a lot less money? You know, you could probably make the political statement instead of actually going there and physically doing it. You know,
I mean, the Whitmer people's plan is, you know, Looney Tunes. It's we're going to kidnap the governor and then take her somewhere and have a trial about what? I mean, that's just silly. Like, it does work. It's interesting to me in the sense, I guess people can work each other up, but their plan didn't make sense on the very face of it. Like, that's not kidnapping a governor and having a trial is not a plan. You know, that's silly. That's clearly not going to happen. I mean, and then what? I mean, how are you going to have a trial? What are the charges going to be? Like, what is this?
Wasn't their thing like something about like she was overstepping her constitutional bounds for the state of Michigan or something like that? I thought that's what the...
Oh yeah, but I'm just imagining getting myself into a state where I'm like, we're really going to have we're going to make a fake courtroom so that I can be like, you, Governor Whitmer, you are violating the Constitution of the United States, and then we're going to have a trial about it? That's just...
Well, I've noticed that in the UK, I mean, just within the last couple of weeks and stuff like that, people are actually going to the police department and filing charges and stuff like that against elected officials for, you know, what they're doing.
Let's see how far that goes.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're giving it to the guy you want to press charges against.
Well, I just sort of mean, what would even the end game of that be? Like, you would have your show trial and then be like, for who? First of all, who are you having the trial for? Is your plan to film it or something? And then you're going to be like, and that's why what? What are you going to? You're going to shoot? You're going to shoot her? Like, is having a COVID lockdown a capital crime? I mean, that's. Do they think that was going to make them sympathetic or something?
Well, I mean, I think maybe the thing to do, you know, in that case, I mean, if you're, you know, the reasonable solution like that would be to like, look, hey, you got to step down. We don't want you to be our governor anymore. But I mean, obviously, but I mean, think about it. If you just were looking at it on that small of a line of things, it's like, hey, you get all the people in town to go down and look, hey, Mayor so-and-so, you're being a, you know, juice bag, as we make the kids call them. And we want you to quit. You know, enough's enough. You know, we're not saying go down there and throw rocks at the building or anything else like that. You know, enough amount of people, the same way, you know, California did the thing where they got the signatures and to try to recall the governor or whatever they call it in California. I don't know if they did it or not, but you know, if you have somebody there working you up, let's just do it right now. Let's get a bunch of, you know, AR-15s and, you know, handguns and go down there and we're going to arrest her. You know, here's the guns. Here's the trucks.
The recall election hasn't happened yet, and they did find that Governor Whitmore's COVID lockdown was unconstitutional. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, you go through the courts. The courts did decide it was unconstitutional. It's just they seem to me like a group of people that or not being realistic at all about what they could accomplish. I guess is that what I would say about it.
Yeah.
You know, and then why do certain ones become televised? Like I remember that Waco thing with the Branch Davidians and everything else like that. That was in the news forever. I worked at a bar, so the news was on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and all the old people were there bitching about it from open to close. You know, people talking about the newspaper articles and stuff like that. That was in the news for a while before the fire and the tank and all that whatnot.
I don't have it in front of me, but I think they sieged the place for like 20-something days. That is a random guess, listeners, but I think it was something like that.
It was more than a little bit, because it was. But why was that so televised? What was the point? What was the end game point that was going on? Why was the Whitmer one so televised? They got the guys. You know what I mean? They got them before they did the crime.
We got him.
You know,
we got him.
Why was it so televised at that particular time? I mean, I'd like to go back and do some rabbit hole digging now that it was Kelly that brought up the Branch Davidians, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to go back and do some digging into it right now, and then what was going on politically at that time.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
To make those kind of connections and stuff, you know.
Exactly. Hey, as you guys know, sometimes we go overtime, so it's okay if people are interested. You guys are still interested. I don't want to speak for your time, Axel. You committed 3 hours and you've served it. So if you want to hang out and talk a little bit, looks like Ash just showed up. I'm gonna step away and get a beer. So it's up to you. If you want to bounce, you're welcome to bounce. Okay. Thank you.
Well, if Ash has something to say, I'll wait for him to come on.
Ash, he's right there. Ash, you dirty reptilian. Welcome to the show. I'm grabbing a beer. Be right back.
Well, hello, everyone. I was just listening, but I always got something to say, you know, but I'm just listening.
Ash.
Well, I mean, the elites, they don't work for you anymore. Right? Isn't that, haven't we decided on that? That the elites are going in their own direction, and they're trying to do whatever they can to decouple themselves from us so that they can do their utopian dream, whatever that is, and behind closed doors. I think that, you know, I think the game, the checkmate, or is either it's already happened or it's done. It's like they can kind of do whatever they want at this point. And if you try to assemble or do anything, they've got 15 different ways of getting you canceled. I mean, during the BLM movement and the January 26th thing, there was clearly provocateurs there, like agents, like grown-ass men with body armor and earpieces, provoking and sabotaging things. And Alex went through that like in the 90s or something, in the early 2000s when they had the some sort of Wall Street protests. So, I mean, they have all these...
Wall Street.
Yeah, I think it was Occupy Wall Street, right? Where they came in and they pretended to be some of the people there and they just busted some stuff up. They broke the law. And I see that on online forums where you'll have a group of people. All you got to do is join, say something awful, report it, keep doing that until the group is removed from the internet. And, you know, the elite, they're just decoupling from any accountability. And, you know, online is now the Twitter and all that stuff is the accountability. Well, you just remove the complaints. You have media meetings, but you only invite people that you know are going to say this right stuff. And soon, like, the people have no voice, and the only action is some sort of rebellion. But they've already got that covered. They want you to do that, because once you do that, then they can activate all the trap cards, right? Like martial law and all these different things. So I don't know. I don't mean to be pessimistic, but it's kind of been checkmate for a while. So the FBI, like, doing these entrapment things is just kind of a tool of many tools, right, that they use. So I don't know if I'm out in crazy field, but it feels that way. In a lot of ways, I feel like I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z no matter what. And like, it doesn't matter about logic. It doesn't matter about any of this stuff. It's like X, Y, and Z. And then slowly and surely, everyone around me is X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. And it doesn't matter how much logic, how much whatever. People have lost it, man. We've been comfortable for too long. We don't got it in us anymore. You know what I'm saying? That's what I feel like.
Take all of our money and tell us what to do.
Yeah.
We're getting ready for the mega cities in China. You know, where they have all those giant cities in China where there's like 80,000 person city, but there's, 3,000 there mopping the floors and washing the windows. That's all they do. They just keep the city. Why there's a giant city there for nothing. It's just a place to send us.
Yeah, we didn't really get into agent provocateurs and stuff, and that definitely is a real thing too. Although it's always tricky because you don't want to fall into the trap of saying, every time someone sort of aligned with you politically does something bad, that's because they're a Fed. But it is true that, some of them are Feds is one of the problems.
Yeah, I saw that on both sides. That's sort of so not to take a side. I literally saw them in both. I watched a lot of content on that.
Oh yeah.
They were in both because it's like a little finger thing. Through chaos, you can like make change, right? And that's kind of the point of false flags is you already have a solution. You have the change that you want, so you create the problem, and then you create pain in the people, and then you offer a solution, which was the thing that you wanted in the first place, right? And look, a lot of things happened out of those things, and the African American community is very skeptical of the government, and I talk to almost all my friends are that are African American. It's because the government used to do all kinds of stuff, like during riots and protests, provocateurs. There's like those documents about Martin Luther King, and I'm just saying, like, these agencies, these governments have the tools. They have playbooks for getting the results that they want. And I don't know. As we become fractured as a society, I don't know. So.
Yes, sometimes you want the public to turn against a protest movement, and the public needs a little help to understand how dangerous they are, so you provide that help.
Yeah, that's all. You just smash a few windows and
burn down the park. They did that here. They actually did that here, and they still won't say who it was, and they know who it was because it's a pretty big park in the middle of a pretty big city. There's cameras. Yeah, every square inch of it.
I will say another practice point for listeners: if there is a crime that's pretty public and that you think the police have to know who did this, or maybe even they do know who did it, and no arrests are ever made, that is another time where maybe you might want to consider that a police informant or agent might be who's involved there.
Yep.
Going after the bigger fish, But, you look at the people like the one that happened in Binghamton. Who was the bigger fish there? He was just a crazy guy. So they say.
I read his manifesto was on the Wikipedia page, and
it was on the front page of the paper. The handwritten letter to New 10 Now that he wrote. They actually had a picture of his letter on the front page of our paper when that happened the next day. He sent it to the news station.
I guess it's just I think maybe it fell under the radar because it's one of those cases that doesn't really buttress. At the time, it doesn't buttress anyone's politics. It's a Vietnamese immigrant complaining about the police being mean to him in California, and how the New York unemployment agency is bad.
Yeah, he had a real hard time, But I mean, that's the thing is though. Sometimes people do just go nuts, I mean, but. If you got the FBI help, you're sitting there and you're struggling with your own demons and everything else like that. And then you got some guy from the FBI coming over and talking to you because you bought an AR-15 or whatever, saying, hey, let's get a bomber and this and to go do that. That's wrong. Don't you think you'd stop it right in the beginning? If it's that important that you got an FBI coming over there to talk to the guy, wouldn't you just like nip it in the bud, as Barney Fife would say?
I mean, you gotta. Yeah, it does to me. I don't know. It does to me seem a lot of times in these cases they let things go on past the point where they already could nab the guy. And I do think, I don't know, I think sometimes it's because it isn't exciting enough, but I do also think sometimes because, well, stage 2, after I convince you maybe you should do something, is maybe you should get other people involved. So I think sometimes they're trying to build these into bigger cases.
And for what reason would you want to do that?
To catch them all.
Yeah,
to catch them all, but you're helping them. You're helping them kick the can down the road. You're making them.
Not only is Mike radical, but maybe other members of his conspiracy communities is radical. We should get them all at once.
Get them all. Get everybody. I'd start with the guy on Mars. It was me. But what do I know?
Hopefully that's where all the elite are going, and the rich people trying to do their little plan. They're all headed to Mars and leaving us to our own demise, and Ash can eat them for us. Ha ha, we showed you. We'll finally get our last laugh.
I'll live stream it.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Jeff Bezos tastes awful, unless you add a little sauce. Now, I'll have a side of Elon Musk, please. And there's... oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say... Mike D4 Life is talking about the helicopters. I almost brought up the helicopters we were talking about, Paddock. I don't agree with everything he's saying, but there was some very suspicious stuff about like these 7 helicopters that took off right when the shooting began. It belonged to some, fly around Las Vegas in a helicopter tourism company. For me, was kind of one of the more mind-melting things about the Paddock case.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the helicopters. I didn't see any convincing evidence for that to me. So if you live out here, there's literally helicopters in the air all the time. Honestly, all the damn time, coming from the north. So they'll take off from the airport there. They'll fly up, and then they'll come back around and fly back down the strip over, kind of over the middle of the strip and where all the casinos are and the big hotels and all that. And then they'll land back at the airport. It's a loop they do. So it's always happening. So I don't know. Like I didn't personally see any compelling evidence to suggest there was something going on with maybe shooting from the helicopters, things like this. I don't know, but
I don't think there was shooting from them, but I do think it was interesting that like a bunch of them took off right when the shooting started. I don't have any conclusions to make. I just thought that was a weird detail. But if it happens all the time, like you say, maybe it was just their scheduled time to take off.
Yeah,
that was the same detail about the Jiverly Wong thing that I was saying. Is you heard every cop car in town take off because there's big buildings in our downtown. So when the cop cars all take off at once, you know it because you can hear it. The whole downtown is a siren. And then it was minutes later. That guy walked in there with a couple of handguns and a couple of extra clips. Why is the FBI helicopter just so happened to be flying over at that time? The cops were still going, but why was there an FBI helicopter there? Stupid little things like that get overlooked I don't know. I mean, I can see where you're right because, all summer long where I lived in South Dakota, there were helicopters flying all over because people wanted to take a tour over, the Mount Rushmore and out by Crazy Horse and through the Badlands because they were too lazy to get out there and drive around, and they'd rather just pay the $100 for the seat on the helicopter. I could see that, being a tourist thing in Vegas,
Like, well, so the thing is too, with all those helicopters taking off in around the same time space, that actual concert had been going on for a long time. It wasn't like it was a festival. It wasn't just like, some dude playing. It was a whole bunch of people playing. So right across the street from Mandalay Bay is the airport where they do the helicopter stuff. So it stands to reason they would be super busy that night because there's a shit ton of people out there coming and going from that concert, right? So that in particular doesn't throw red flags up to me. But like I said, you would have to kind of go, like if this is what investigative reporters would do, they'd go down and they'd actually verify, right, if there was any additional activity that night that seemed suspicious. Right, and they
any cops on the helicopter? Did the cop helicopter take off?
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that happened that night that was weird. There was like a lot of stuff, and it seemed like there was a narrative, and it fell apart, and they just like moved on from it. It just felt the whole thing felt weird. Like, he was weird. His brother said some weird stuff in the driveway about him. He carried like a ton of guns, like in one trip. I mean, it's real. There was supposedly eyewitnesses saw a bunch of other guys with guns walking around. I saw video of flashes coming from a chopper. I don't know, but it's hard to validate any video, right? And people were hiding, and they felt like they were being shot from like 3 different directions, and that's why a lot of people were really freaking out because they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And I can't corroborate any of this stuff, right? But there was a lot of weird stuff. Remember the FBI agent standing behind the cop, and he was like nervously reading exactly what they said. They went to go breach the apartment, and they breached the wrong apartment. It's just, there was so much. It was such a weird thing that I know it's crazy to jump to conclusions and everything that. But my gut instinct would be like that was like some sort of like false flag, or maybe he was like ex-CIA agent who went crazy or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It just felt weird. We're talking about the
Mandalay Bay.
Mandalay. That's right. There's a delay on me saying that. Right. But it was weird, right? The whole thing was weird. It was just weird. It was really strange.
Well,
and there was a woman who came there earlier, supposedly. Yes. Yeah, you right? Is this what you're about to say? Go ahead.
Oh no, we talked about it on the show that there's people there that saw him with a woman beforehand.
And some woman came up to the crowd and said, "You're all gonna die," and you're gonna die, and like someone took her away or something. I don't know. I didn't want to touch that thing with a 6-foot pole, but I heard so much stuff. It was really weird.
Yeah, like I said, cops out here won't touch it. Hey, we got to wind this down, guys. We've been at this for 3+ hours, so let's do it. What's up, Penny? What's up, Tam Bam? I see you guys out there. Thanks for showing up. What's up, Kate? Let's do it. We got anything else? What we got you guys on here before we do the outro with Jay, the J-tro?
Hey, you guys have a good night. I'm going to bounce. I'll let you guys do your thing, and have a good night, guys.
Peace. Thanks for showing up, Ash.
Well, nice to see you again, Ash. I just want to say thank you, Mike, for having me on. Thank you, audience members, for listening to me. And I'm also going to bow out and let Jay wrap this up.
There you go. All right. You guys have a great one. We'll catch you guys later. Ash and Axel, thanks again to Axel for spending his night with us. It does go fast, but it is 3 hours of your time. It's almost like time traveling. So, boom, you're like, damn, 3 hours is up already, and well, shit, I got things to do. So thanks again for hanging out, Axel, and let's do it, Jay. I'm sure you got some amazing shit for us, as you always do.
I do, but the thing is, though, is it's really going to bum you guys out when I tell you who told it.
Oh, shit. All right.
But cool. Thanks, Ash and Axel. I mean, I really enjoyed today's show. So anyway, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your own heart and intuition. And I don't know, it's Steve Jobs, man.
Steve Jobs.
Said that.
Dear God.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, but I read the quote and I liked it before I.
Hey, man.
Well, I mean, it goes along with it. I mean, if you think about those guys in, Michigan and stuff like that, if they would have, had just that little bit of mindset. Well, actually, some of these people did. No, I'm not doing that. Follow what's in your own heart. Be a good person.
Amen to that. Great shit as always, Jay. Thank you everybody for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us. This is the end of the week. Troubled Minds goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll be back tomorrow for the news show at 3 p.m. Pacific. And thanks again, guys. You guys are the best. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for spreading the word. Thanks for spending your time with us. Thanks for all the thoughtful chat, the thoughtful calls. Thanks again to Jay, Ash, and Axel for spending their time with us tonight. You guys are the best. Is this where we howl? No, let's do this first. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours. Have a great night. I think this is where we howl now, Jay.
All right. Ow.
Ow.
Great show.
All right.
Great show.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. When are you coming on our channel? Ash, you're missed. There you go. Penny's hunting down Ash, the reptilian from Mars. Where you been, buddy? All right, guys. No. I've looked into the gunships over Vegas thing. I've looked into it. I'm telling you, I'm not convinced. If you've got a particular link, come join the Discord. Troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. Share the stuff in there. You can't really drop it in the YouTube stuff here. But yeah, okay. I'm willing to see new evidence if you have it. So please send it over. I'd love to see those videos, and maybe I'll change my mind because, well, you should be willing to change your mind. But okay, let's get the hell out of here. As we finish, thanks again. There you go, Mike D for life. Appreciate all the good stuff out there, and all the links from everybody, and all the hearts from Jack. As we finish it up, let's do it. Have a great night, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. for the new show.